right. Welcome to Catching Up with Jacob. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you may be. Thank you for joining us. And here he is, my good friend back in the U.S., Jacob Prash. How are you, Jacob?
Getting ready for Jesus to come. Let's get together, pray, work, and prepare the way for his return. It's the only way forward.
Glad you're with us, Jacob. Welcome back. God bless you. And also from Israel, it's evening. How are you, Elon? It's already Friday
I'm very
night.
well,
Oh,
thank you,
Shabbat Shalom.
Marco.
Yeah,
Good
good to
evening,
see you.
everybody. Yes, and Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah,
The Sabbath has already
Shalom.
come in here.
that's right. That's right. And back from the South, if you want to put it that way, above the Mason-Dixon line. But now back on the West Coast. Jay, how are you?
I'm good. Actually, I made it all the way to Ohio. I was actually in Cincinnati for about an hour. So,
Beautiful city.
yeah, it was really beautiful if it wasn't a thunderstorm at night.
Oh, yeah, that was not beautiful. But yeah, welcome back. I'm glad you made it back, Jay.
Thank you. It's nice to be
And
back.
next day already, Saturday, in time, future. You are the future man. Davey, how are you?
Yeah, doing good, thanks, and good to be with you guys again. I've got to ask you, Jay, did you get to try any Grater's ice cream while you were in Cincinnati?
No, unfortunately, I did stick to my no sugar thing that I'm doing. So,
Very good.
unfortunately, no.
Very good. All right. Well, welcome everyone. And those who are watching us live and those who watch us later, catching up with Jacob, giving you current events according to and view of Scripture, in light of Scripture, and we look at it through the lenses of Scripture. So, lots of things to talk about today. Lots of good topics. So, welcome. And if you're on any of the platforms, from Rumble to X to Telegram to YouTube to Vimeo to our own Memorial.tv, memorialtv.org, as well as RTN. Welcome those in the name of the Lord. Facebook. Are we still doing Facebook Live, Jay?
We are still doing Facebook Live. It
Did
is
you hear,
running
Jay?
as we speak.
Did you hear about what they're trying to do in New Mexico? No more Facebook, WhatsApp, or Instagram.
Wow.
Yeah, it has to do with that child safety thing that they
Ah.
are getting accused of. So they're demanding. New Mexico is not too happy with them because they don't protect the children. Other states may be jumping on it, but Meta is really considering pulling out of New Mexico.
Why don't they go
Is
after
looking
TikTok?
for to try to get them to amend their laws and leave his company alone, or is it serious?
Right, exactly. So we'll see. Yeah, because there's lots of lawsuits coming up. We heard about the one in LA, but there are 35 other ones that are in line to go after YouTube and Facebook, especially. And then, of course, the Meta is the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So we're still on Facebook, so that's good. And I'm glad everyone is able to join us. Any announcements? Anybody got any announcements? I don't know if we're doing a giveaway today, Jake. Can we do a giveaway or do it next week?
I'll be coming to Winnipeg, Canada on the 14th and the 16th of this new month of May. And the details are on the Moriel website, moriel.org, on the itinerary page. Looking forward to seeing our Canadian friends. I've not been to Canada since before COVID, and I'm looking forward to it.
I would just like to clarify, since our friends in Canada have asked me to clarify, it is 45 minutes outside of Winnipeg. It's
Okay.
called Portage La Prairie, Manitoba.
All right.
That is actually where Jacob will be. It is near Winnipeg. I think it's the largest major city. But they wanted to make sure that we clarified that because many people were calling saying, "Where is he in Winnipeg?"
Yeah, it's a large city. It's like saying LA, right? And then it's like, well, where in LA? Well, is it downtown LA? Is it
Yes. Is it
Downey? Yeah,
downtown?
yeah.
Is it Thousand Oaks?
Exactly, exactly. So quite a big place. Well, Jacob, maybe while you're there, you can convince some of the maybe you can lead some of the Alberta movement to Carney
Yeah.
and Parliament. Maybe secession. I don't know. I'm not asking for it, but there's lots of people that are for it. Lots of people that are for it. So
A third of the population of Alberta is for it.
yeah, yeah. So that's going to be very interesting. Any giveaways today, Jay?
Sure. We will give away whether it be our good brother Christoph's album or one of the two albums that I've done. We will be asking a question today. This time, we will ask a question on theology, since it's
All right.
on my mind. How about
All
that?
right. Do you want to do
Uh,
it on backstage? So we go to backstage, ask the questions, you can ask it there. That
sure.
work?
Stick
All right,
around for
perfect.
backstage. We'll do a giveaway.
That is going to be awesome. So I'm sorry, Moriel members of Catching Up are exempt from that. So sorry, Elon, you can't answer that question. So you can't get that album, but you could get the album if you go to Moriel.org, right, Jay? Moriel.org, you can find the
Yes,
album there. So
all three are ready for sale right now. You can buy
my
Christoph's
goodness.
or two of the other ones.
My goodness. So it is in the United States it's Cinco de Mayo. So maybe you can get a gift for Cinco de Mayo. Get Jay's two albums and Christoph's album. That would be nice. But you can give it away for Memorial Day. You can give it away anytime. It's just great stuff, worshiping Jesus and following the Lord. Good stuff. I've heard them, and I'm actually waiting for Jacob's release album. So whenever those songs are going to come out, that'd be great. All kidding aside, Jacob, all kidding aside, but I did like some of the ideas that you have. So anyway, that's good. Any other announcements? Davey, you good? Elon, you're good?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, let's do it. Third attempt on Trump's life. Jacob Prash, while you were traveling and coming back and getting things settled back in Tennessee, on Saturday night, this past Saturday, there was a third attempt on Trump's life. Now, we're only counting the third one. There are probably other ones that were maybe you could say that could have been, but they're definitely the ones in Butler, the ones in Mar-a-Lago, the one, of course, in Washington, D.C. It was a White House Correspondents' dinner on Saturday. Jacob Cole Allen is the shooter, 31-year-old educator from California. No surprise there. Your thoughts on it?
Caltech educated mechanical engineer is not a stupid person, but he's still a deranged person. You know, you get criminals who may be street smart, but they're not very clever intellectually. But some of the most dangerous criminals or psychopaths can be people who are well educated. Um, like the mythical character Professor Moriarty in the
That's
Sherlock Holmes
that's right.
novels,
That's right.
Conan
That's right.
Doyle. You know, or Dr. Fu Manchu, you know, but Max Romer.
Yeah.
People of high intelligence who are wicked. He seems to fit into that category, unfortunately. He was convinced Kamala Harris was going to win the election, all sorts of things, but he did what he did, and it was the third time. To me, what is important is, well, obviously, it was advantageous to capture him alive and not shoot him because of the situation with Iran. There needed to be investigations to see if he was part of some kind of Iranian conspiracy or something like this. If Iranian intelligence was active in trying to assassinate Donald Trump. Fortunately, he was captured and interrogated to a degree to answer questions, but investigated. And we know he appears to be a lone wolf, howbeit a lone wolf who's insane. But many lone wolves, I suppose, are. What is important to me is this represents the third time that I believe divine protection has intervened and protected Donald Trump. I know there are criticisms of the Secret Service once again. How did he get that far? He got close to the door, even though he did not enter the auditorium where the president and vice president were. He got closer than he should have. These are criticisms which may have validity. But what is important is, for the third time, God has protected Donald Trump. I wish he spoke of the Lord and gave the Lord the credit as he did at the previous attempts. It's divine protection. It's God's hand. It's God's angelic protection, however we wish to understand it. I have no doubt it's the prayers of Christians praying for Mr. Trump. Now, again, Mr. Trump is not a believer. He is not. We need to pray he becomes a believer. I myself do not agree with everything he does by any means, but overall, he's in most respects the best president of my lifetime. Overall, he's standing by Israel. God will bless those who bless Israel and curse those who curse Israel. When I saw Jimmy Kimmel making sport and mockery and just speaking hatred, this is supposed to be somebody who brings lighthearted evening entertainment, okay, maybe some political satire. That man is just a voice of malice. He's a voice of malice. Why ABC and Disney don't get rid of him? It's an indictment of them, and they're going to suffer. Well, in terms of their stock prices are going down. These are very foolish people. Very foolish people. Nonetheless, this was God's hand protecting Mr. Trump. Now, I do not believe that it is only because of Israel that the United States has acted against Iran. The United States has acted against Iran because they call us the great Satan. They say it is their goal to destroy us, and they're trying to achieve a nuclear capacity and a ballistic missile capacity. And previous efforts during the 12-day war to put their atomic weapons development capacity out of action only partially worked. They resumed it immediately, and they're still wanting to resume it. The stupidity of Europe, who's more vulnerable than America is indefensible. Mr. Trump has acted not just in the interest of Israel, but in the interest of the United States, in the interest of Europe, in the interest of the Emirates and Saudi Arabia, and in the interest of Israel. Yet the anti-Semites are just putting it all on Israel. He's doing Mr. Netanyahu's bidding, which is complete nonsense. If you speak to the Emirates, they'll tell you a very different story, and they are Arab Muslims, and they do not have that view. This is what is basically happening. Mr. Trump is acting, and Satan is acting. We are in a conflict in the book of Daniel of principalities. God is using Donald Trump the way he used other non-believing leaders in the history of the church and in the history of Israel. We see this the way God used Roman governors in the book of Acts to protect the life of Paul, Festus, and so forth. We see that God has used Paul's Roman citizenship, appealing to Caesar. We've seen this. Although Luther didn't end well, he began well, and the German princes protected Luther. God will use non-believers for his purposes. He establishes kings and removes kings. And God has been using Mr. Trump despite his faults and imperfections. I don't think it's a Christian cause to support him, but it is a Christian cause to pray for him, that God will protect him and continue to use him. This was, again, divine intervention for the third time. The devil wants him dead.
Yeah, no doubt, Jacob. Thank you for that. And I'm going to go to Jay. Jay, real quick. The manifesto leaves no room for interpretation. I mean, he is radicalized by the mainstream. I mean, he literally was quoting every mainstream point from Kamala Harris winning the swing states to, Obama was the best president ever. He describes himself as a half black, half white, and he wanted to kill all of Trump's cabinet except for Kash Patel. I mean, on and on. I mean, Trump's is Hitler, he's Goebbels, he's everybody that you want to hate. And boy, he is a product of mainstream media, if anybody was.
And this is the media you get for free if you're willing to watch a million commercials. This is what most people would call the throwaway news. And he's completely programmed. Like you say,
Yeah.
all you have to do is, if you want to laugh, watch Jimmy Kimmel, watch
Yes.
all the other nightly talk shows. They all hate Trump with the same vehemence. Um, it's it's not surprising that he's an educator. I find that, especially in LA County, a lot of the educators, I'm not going to say all, because I do know a few that are actually, let's say, fair. But for the most part, to be part of the education system in Los Angeles, you have to compromise and you have to toe the party line for the most part. And I just want to go ahead and say, think about how scary it is that he had access to teach children and radicalize children for how many years?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing to think that he was actually, well, Torrance, California, not too far from here. We kind of know that school districts are filled with people of that ilk that have that same view and are pushing their own agenda on children, not just the LGBTQ ideologies, but other things as well. I'm going to go to Elon. Elon from Israel. What's your thoughts on these third attempt against Trump? I mean, Netanyahu is as much hated as Trump is. Maybe not assassination attempts that way, but it's something relatable that the hatred by one party
Yes.
toward him, it's incredible.
Yes. I mean, there is a, though BB is popular out here, and he is, um, there there is out here also an anti-BB kind of movement, and they won't have BB at all at any cost. And
Oh,
a lot of this is backed by uh, foreign funding, NGOs, and renter mobs. I mean, I don't think much of it really arises from mere genuine protest. A lot of this is paid for activism, and this was proven, I think, last year, where some people were interviewed and they were paid. They were paid to show up. So
mm,
it's not just a natural disagreement with BB. In many cases,
yeah.
some of it is pay for protest. I mean, there's a lot of foreign money sloshing around. You think it's even worse in Europe? I mean, they do try over here to stop the influence of some of these NGOs because they're so corrosive and pernicious.
Yeah,
But
I wish they
they're
did that
running
here.
amok in Europe.
Yeah, I wish they did that here. Jacob Prash, the Obama lies continue. He comes on and says, "Is there room for violence in our democracy?" He says, "But we don't know exactly what this guy was looking for. We have no motive. It's unclear." The guy wrote a 31-page a 1,000-word page manifesto, I should say, telling exactly what he believed. And James Carville is going like, "I don't want Trump dead. I want him to suffer. I want him to lose and see him suffer throughout the elections." These people have leave no room for discussion. They hate him, and they would want anything and anything, everything and anything for it to not to happen, for Trump not to have any success. Your thoughts on Obama and Carville?
I'll take Carville first. Carville is aging, not aging well. Some people remain functional and coherent as they age over the age of 80. He's an exception. He's not doing that well. Um, he predicted victories for Hillary Clinton, for Harris with certainty. And he was discredited as a punter and as a political analyst. He's failed miserably, and he's frustrated and he's angry. He does not command the same credibility he once did in the political spectrum because he's been too wrong too often. So I think it's not just the typical Democratic Party quest for power. It is his personal resentment at
Yeah.
having been wrong and having lost the prestige that he once had. Barack Obama, well, what can you say about Barack Obama? Barack Obama is a failed president. He achieved absolutely nothing as president. When he ran for president, he ran against the foreign and defense policies of Bush, fair enough, but then he reappointed Bush's Secretary of Defense, Gates. The entire counterterrorism team were Bush's. He just reappointed them because he knew they had a better chance of getting bin Laden. He appointed Hillary Clinton, who supported Bush's incursion into Iraq. He blasted the incursion into Iraq, but appointed Hillary Clinton as the Secretary of State. He's a complete and utter hypocrite, a complete and utter hypocrite, and he always has been. In domestic policy, he lied over 31 times on television that if you like your present health plan, you can keep it. The man is a pathological liar. He lied 31 times about that one issue. Just about that one issue, he lied. He's obviously a commensurate hypocrite. And And of course, when he became president in the aftermath of the 2008 disaster, of which he was in large part responsible, he and Chris Dodd were more responsible for what happened than anybody else in the Senate in 2008, just as Barney Frank was responsible for what happened in the House. It was Obama. He blocked any efforts in the Senate to prevent the crash that was going to come as a result of the subprime lending that was engineered by Clinton, by uh, uh, Cuomo, and promoted by Clinton's administration, although supported by Bush, the Rhino. This was the mess that happened. Then he comes in. There was not one Wall Street indictment, not one Wall Street indictment of one of those bankers. Eric Holder, who was a racist, and Geithner, his Secretary of Treasury, who was a tax cheat. He appoints a tax cheat as his Secretary of the Treasury, who's in charge of the IRS now, and Holder. They did not do anything to the Wall Street kingpins or anybody responsible for what happened in 2008, probably because they'd have to go after Obama himself. But be that as it may, nothing except bail out the banks. Bail out the banks. Okay, they bailed out the banks. The stupidity of the Occupy Wall Street movement thought they were protesting capitalism. Too stupid to know that a government bailout of banks is not capitalism, that's socialism. But you're dealing with stupid people. Fast forward. There you have Barack Obama once again. After 2 terms, average family income for Black American families declines by $900 under 2 terms of Barack Obama. He bailed out the Wall Street bankers. He bailed out Wall Street. What did he do for his own people? Put him on the breadline? That man is a hypocrite. He is a liar, and he is responsible for the arming of Iran. He and Joe Biden, his protege, his senile protege, put $300 billion in unfrozen funds in their hands, plus another $1.7 billion of our money covertly. Barack Obama funded the terrorist regime of Iran that Donald Trump is dismantling. And so, of course, he's going to say things like this. He's a hypocrite. He's a liar. It's interesting to note that racial harmony was at a pretty much an all-time high before he became president. It is only once he and Holder came into power that they began racializing everything and making race an issue again to divide the country and bring about the kind of political changes they want going to the left. They re-racialized American politics. That's why he is indignant about the Supreme Court decision made this week that you cannot gerrymander or draw congressional districts on racial lines.
Let's talk about that real quick. Eric Holder was a big part of the redistricting of the United States in 2010, 2012.
Yes.
And he was a big part of it because they used them to redistrict California, Illinois. It was a big part of what's going on today. Talk to me a little bit about what the decision by the Supreme Court on the Louisiana. So Louisiana actually said today that they are going to scrap the whatever preliminary elections are going to be. I think it's in next month, and they're going to redraw the lines. They're going to redraw the line. Will this bring other states into that, Jacob?
Hopefully so, because there's nothing to stop it judicially now. There's nothing to stop it judicially now. Notice how the Democrats are up in arms and scream when there's any kind of a redistricting, Florida or Texas, and possibly even in Tennessee coming. But they've done it consistently. They've done it in Illinois. They've done it in California.
Virginia.
Tried to. In Virginia, Spanberger, who's a deep state villain and a self-hating Jew, Spanberger wanted to create a situation where 49% of the voting population of Virginia, 49% of the electorate would only have 9% of the 9% representation in the House of Representatives. And she said this was a reaction against Trump. That woman is just she is a wicked witch. She even looks like a wicked witch.
And she ran as a moderate, which is what the Carville
Yeah,
was
she's a
saying.
liar.
Don't say anything, just do it. Don't say anything, just do it. So wear the
What
suit of
really
a
bothers me
moderate.
is what really bothers me is you've got 80% of the Democratic Party is now anti-Israel. There is an 80%. 4 out of 5 Democrat voters are anti-Israel. You have growing anti-Semitism, much of it in the Democratic Party, and you've got an idiot like Bette Midler or another idiot like Spanberger, a complete hypocrite like Schumer or Blumenthal, still riding that bandwagon against Donald Trump, against anything other than the Democratic Party that is increasingly against them.
Yeah.
It's not even logical. These people are demonically deceived in some way. As I've said many times, they are like the character Menelaus in the epic of the Maccabees in the saga of Hanukkah. They are Jews who betray their own people. This is Wasserman Schultz. This is Schumer. This is Blumenthal. This is Spanberger. It's unbelievable. And it's now Bette Midler singing stupid songs. Um, it's
You could not
it's
have
like
scripted
Jews.
this.
It's like Jews doing a fundraiser for Hitler for the Nazis.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. Jacob, it said that if it goes through, and now you have a legal precedence to go through, each and every state could do it now. They can go and redraw the lines.
Yes,
So the VRAs are no longer going to be part of that. They can redraw the lines that way. So Louisiana is going to do it. Mississippi is thinking about doing it. Maybe Alabama, as you said, other states. Will this, from what I've read, it's about 30 seats if about three-quarters of these states do it, redraw the lines, get rid of VRA, there'll be 30 seats added to the Republican Party. This will flip the 2026 elections.
I hope so, but it would have to happen rather quickly. Additionally, this is not a legislation or a decree. It just says it's not illegal for this, that the states don't have to take race into consideration when they redistrict. That's all it says. The states can redistrict without consideration of race. But
Yeah,
places like
yeah.
Illinois and
Go ahead.
California have already done it.
Right. Yeah. So can somebody sue, Jacob? Let's say, myself or somebody can say, hey, this redistricting, it is affecting me, and they're doing it off based on race. I want to, have my grievances, have grievances against the state. They could do it. I mean, based on lawsuits, right? Anybody
Could
can
bring
bring a lawsuit.
you could bring a litigation, yes.
Yeah, this is huge. Jay, I'm going to go to you. Oh, yes. It's time for conspiracy time. Jay,
Yes.
uh, the big conspiracy is that Trump faked this shooting so he can get his ballroom he's been asking for with private funding, private donations, of course, and that this was all staged. And also because the image of the man running across in the hotel, Cole Allen, was very poor quality. They used AI to enhance the
Yeah.
quality. Then the left and the Dems went crazy saying, well, it's AI, it was fake and staged. So this is a new thing. Trump is staging stuff to get things going, and he is not harmed because he's from the future.
That's right.
Can
He's a
you?
time traveler.
Yeah, let's
In
talk
fact,
about
we
that.
we we have evidence. There was I believe it's a Hungarian or
Yeah,
a man
Prussian.
by the
Yeah,
name of
Prussian.
Duchow,
Yep.
Charles Duchow, and he has a painting with Trump in almost a steampunk air balloon with 45 on it.
Yes.
And actually,
Yes.
it's like you look at that and then you take Ingersoll Lockwood's The Last President, and it's about a Baron Trump. I don't think it's just Trump. I think it's him and his son as a like almost like a Marty McFly and Doc Brown kind of like team going back in time. I mean, how else could he have made all this money? He must have known from the beginning where to invest. I mean, obviously, if you've got pictures from the 1800s of Trump written on it with they say it's a blonde man. It looks like a brunette actually to me on this painting or this sketch in this air balloon. Um, it says Trump at the bottom. And you know what's really interesting is it says Houston, April 20th, April 1920 at the bottom. I wonder, is that like some kind of inversion? Like, do we need to wait until 1920? That's when he visited, and he like went into a balloon. I'm not certain, but I'm sure that yes, absolutely, this is proof. Trump is a time traveler. He is absolutely going throughout time and stealing precious things to become wealthy and powerful. And that's why he can avoid assassinations. It's very obvious to people that are actually paying attention.
Jay, are you saying the character Biff from Back to the Future movie was Trump because he made all this money? And remember, he steals the book,
Oh,
he goes
that's
back and
right. He
he
has
makes
the
a
book and he could
okay,
call what's going to happen before. That's right. And actually,
yeah,
it's
and he
funny because Biff,
yeah,
he was a casino owner. Trump,
casino guy, yeah, he made money in
yeah,
casinos, yeah.
Trump had a casino. So obviously, yeah, definitely.
There you go. You cracked the code right here. But it is, Jay, to stay with you, it is quite amazing. We live in times where conspiracy theories probably gets the most hits, the most views, the most interest, especially among a younger generation. Is this problematic going forward because nobody believes anything anymore? You can post something online. Jacob Prash is preaching something, and then, oh, that's got to be fake. That's got to be AI. That's got to be this. We're going to get to that point.
I mean, we're already at that point, unfortunately. I mean, you can with AI, one of my favorite things lately has been Chuck Norris showing up to fight dinosaurs, Chuck Norris kicking Jaws off of the boat, Chuck Norris coming over and slamming a ice cream cone on top of Biden's head and then kicking him off the podium. I mean, AI makes it very easy to do these things. So you're right. How can you believe your own eyes and your ears when you can basically forge anything you want? What used to be you can put photographic evidence and say, "See, here's the truth." No,
Not
that's
anymore,
not the
huh?
case anymore.
It's interesting about that book, Angerson Lockwood, and then the other one with the paintings. I don't know what to
Yeah.
make of them, except for, very odd coincidence. Plus, the whole thing about John Trump, his uncle, going in there and knowing some of the inventions of Nikola Tesla and all these things.
There,
Yeah,
yeah, he actually, I believe there's something, I'm not sure if this is just conspiracy, but they say that he actually was there studying the
yeah,
schematics of
yeah,
Nikola Tesla, which that could be the genesis of their time traveling ability, because we all know
yeah.
that Nikola Tesla had access to technologies beyond our comprehension,
Yes.
like the death ray.
Yeah, it's gonna get really Elon, what do you think of these conspiracies? I mean, it's gonna get it's getting there, but it's gonna get so unbelievably dubious in our lifetime. People are not gonna believe anything anymore. Everything will be questioned, everything will be doubtful. There'll be no truth. Everybody's gonna have their own version of truth. Is that where we're going?
Well, we're already, as Jay said, we're already most of the way there. I mean, we live in a postmodern society where the idea of objective truth is frowned upon by a lot of people anyway. And now that the AI revolution has accelerated this thing in a sense, it's thrown petrol on the flames because and this stuff is sometimes so good. I mean, I was just looking at some AI tutorials for a few days ago. I was just sharing these with Jay actually, where you can you create your own avatar to do your to do your presentations. So and it was this particular one. It was the person that was you doing the presentation was actually an AI avatar that was
Wow.
being
Wow.
used. And it was a an avatar. It was a young blonde woman, and I thought, apart from the fact that it's just too perfect, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. The lip sync was perfect, the background, it was very hard to tell the difference between that and a real person, apart from the fact that the complexion was completely flawless.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's getting harder and harder to distinguish. Before long, we'll be back in the age where, unless you've actually been on site and seen the thing with your own two eyes, I don't, witness testimony for things. Video evidence is so easy to fake that it may be discounted in the future. This is the way we could end up.
Wow.
Marco, I want
Yeah.
to kind of piggyback on this. I was doing some apologetics with a young man the other day, and I was trying to show him and illustrate. First of all, you can't dive in the water and you can't breathe. You can't fly in the air. You cannot drop an anvil on your head and survive. I was saying these are objective truths. Your perception doesn't affect these. And he proceeded to tell me he's done all of these things. And I, of course, responded by
Whoa.
saying, that's obvious because you believe you did it. Um,
Hmm.
but according to him, because he dreamt that he was flying, because he dreamt he was breathing underwater, because he dreamt he dropped an anvil on his head, all of those things are true. And
Wow.
Oh
I
boy.
wish that this was the case of just this one person,
Like an isolated case. Yeah.
but it's not isolated.
Hmm.
This is something that I'm coming across more and more as I talk to more and more young people. The idea that they define reality by what they perceive in their dreams or
Wow.
their sensation of what reality is. And I'm going to chuck it up to the school system because I challenged him and
Yes.
said, biologically speaking, if someone claims to be something and they're not biologically, then they're not. And he's like, well, that depends on how you perceive it. I'm like,
Wow.
oh, I see where this came from.
Yeah, there's just no objective truth. Jacob, how do we reach a generation like that with the gospel where it's built on truth and people don't believe in truth anymore? How do we reach them? How do we convince them of the reality of Christ, the resurrection, his return, the word of God? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think of the situation at the trial of Jesus, where Pilate, coming from a Roman world, a Greco-Roman world, that was framed by a worldview based on philosophies, okay, and framed by superstitious pagan religions. Nobody knew what truth was. Pilate said to Jesus, "What is truth?" Remember?
Yes.
So the predominant worldview, what is truth? Truth is relative. Everyone has their own idea of truth. Um, Truth is what you want it to be or what you perceive it to be. Ultimate truth is something that was an idea, not a reality. It was a concept. It was not a reality. Jesus came and said, I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Amen.
He
Amen.
personified truth. Father, sanctify them in the truth. Thy word is truth. The worldview that we're coming into will be like the one that Pilate had. What is truth? People won't know what truth is. Okay. We will because of Jesus and because of the word of God. So,
Amen.
evangelistically and apologetically, you don't know what truth is. You people can't agree what truth is. We can. We can show you what truth is. Either Jesus was right or he was wrong. We believe he was right. Here's why. That is how I think it needs to be
Yeah.
approached.
So it's even
And
more of an imperative for us to witness to this generation that has lost
absolutely.
the reality of truth, has no concept of truth. Everything's relative. And Jacob, the guy that did a lot of damage in the church, especially to young people, is Rob Bell, or when Rob Bell would actually
Absolutely. Well, he was
claim
he
things.
he about the devil.
Yeah,
He wrote a
yeah.
stupid book called Love Wins, which is completely contrary to scripture. Um, he was just an evil man. But it goes back again to Darwinism. I recall Jonas Salk, a Jewish scientist who invented the poliomycin vaccine. the primary one that came to be used and almost wipe out polio. And he said there's a contradiction in his worldview because as a medical scientist and a humanitarian, he's looking to cure disease. But as a scientist also, he believes in Darwinism and that's survival of the fittest. And if people cannot immunize themselves or overcome disease, they're not meant to survive. So there's a contradiction between what he's doing from a humanitarian point of view and what he's doing from a philosophical point of view based on his Darwinistic understanding of science and the philosophy that comes from it. He admitted that contradiction.
Fascinating.
They don't have an absolute. We do.
Amen.
Well, a Christian can say, I'm working to preserve human life because man is made in the image and likeness of God and life is sacred. Disease came because of sin, because of the fall. It's not supposed to be there. Well, with the Darwinist, it is.
Yeah, it's supposed to be there to get rid of unwanted people. Jake, I'm going to stay with you because the violence that is being fomented, and we're hitting a crescendo left and right here now. It's no longer theory. We're seeing the violence comes from the left primarily. Even the neo-Nazis that used to be put in a category of right-wing extremists, no longer. I mean, we have to really look at this paradigm and say, where's the violence coming from? It's coming from the left, Marxist, communist, pro-Islam, anti-Jew, violence rhetoric and attack. And of course, it's coming from the neo-Nazis. It is here in America. It's coming from the Democratic Party. We had individuals like Savannah Hernandez, a good journalist from Turning Point USA, another one from the Post-Millennial, obviously the attacks on Trump. You have Comey indictment because of his 8647, which we all I think people know what that is. 86 is to get rid of. 47 is the president's number 47 president. So he's been indicted. That message of getting rid of people, shooting, violence, Charlie Kirk, the killing of Charlie Kirk, the threats against Erica Kirk, that is coming from the left. Can you comment on where we are now in America politically?
A number of years ago, probably 20 years ago, we first did a teaching called Not Even a Minyan on the rescue of Lot. And at that time, before it began to happen, I said, homosexuality will become increasingly militant. It'll not just be something demanding social acceptance, which is how it began. It's going to be something that's going to demand people conform to it. They're going to go after children. They're going to go after families, and they're going to become violent against those who will not acquiesce to it. I said, this is going to be like the days of Sodom, that twice the New Testament uses the epic, the saga of Lot from the book of Genesis in connection with showing what the last days will be like. The rescue of righteous Lot is a picture of the rapture. But homosexuality will become more and more violent. It always works the same way. First, homosexuality pretended to be passive. We're just nice people. We just want our own orientation. We just want to be left alone to have our own thing. We don't want to bother anybody. We just want to be tolerated. But then once they got that, they became intolerant. Now we want your children. We're coming after your children. They actually sang that. The San Francisco homosexual choir.
Oh yeah, the choir.
Sang it as an anthem. Okay, think of Islam. They take the Medina verses, we're a religion of peace and tolerance, until they get enough Muslims to take the Mecca passages of the Quran. Now it's jihad. We want your country. We're going to force you. They always begin by saying, we just want tolerance and coexistence and peace. Once they get that, then they begin to become militant. That's the way communism works. That's the way Islam works. That's the way homosexuality works. That is the way those movements work. Once the devil gets his foot in the door, He's going to break into the room and try to take it over. That is what is happening. It's like to be a social democrat. That is simply a transition to being a Marxist. It seems benevolent initially, and it cons stupid people. But once they get a social democrat government, then they move to an out and out Marxist regime. It always works the same way. They always follow that pattern. It parallels what the New Testament tells us in James about sin. It begins with a thought. Once you begin to entertain the thought and give place to it, it begins manifesting itself and morphing into a lust. And then it will lead you into a sin. All the enemy needs to do is get his foot into the door. And it begins seemingly benevolently, or at least benignly. But it doesn't stay that way.
Yeah, you got the attacks on reporters now, the attack, and the crazy thing, Jacob, is the attack on Christians. I mean, you have Charlie Kirk who was murdered. Um,
Absolutely.
you have reporters, and even his own wife is being threatened. Trump is being threatened. On and on and on it goes, and yet no indictments come. Maybe now the Comey one comes. Maybe that'll change something.
The corrupt British government of Starmer allows IRGC representation in London. They're allowing Islamic, anti-Semitic, anti-Judeo-Christian, anti-British organization to exist in London, where there's a Muslim mayor who was pro-Islamist. At one time, this would have been interpreted as a treasonous act.
Yeah.
But this is the Starmer government.
Yeah, are you somewhat hopeful that maybe Comey would be indicted? Not well, he's been indicted, but that he'll be found guilty of those. I mean,
I think
these kind of charges.
the 8647, it used to be said that meant menus, get it off the menu, or we don't want it.
Yeah, yeah,
it was something that did not necessarily mean to assassinate or exterminate somebody. I
right.
think it is indictment for not that I don't like Comey, not that I wouldn't like to see him die in federal prison. I'd like to see him taken to the gallows for treason if it's up to me. But I don't think it is a strong case. Then again, I'm not a lawyer. The 8647 could be interpreted in other ways.
Yeah. I think it has some weaknesses, but why not go after the big ones? Crossfire Hurricane, the FISA court, lying,
Yes,
protecting
absolutely.
Hillary Clinton. Why not go
Hillary
for those?
Clinton and Testa.
Yeah,
Why were they not indicted?
yeah. The Russia gate, the Trump Russia
Yes,
collusion, it on and
yes.
on. And yet his
Look,
response is so
Brennan
brazen.
should die in prison. Brennan should either be capitally executed or die in prison. Clapper, the same.
Yeah. But it's so brazen, Jacob, that he says, I'm innocent and I'm not afraid. It's almost like, okay, bring it on. You're not going to be able to touch me. Maybe he's well insulated. I don't know.
I do think it is a weak indictment.
Yeah.
I hope
Now,
it's wrong.
yeah. Jay, I want to go to you real quick. The David Morans, former senior NIAID official who worked under Fauci, he's been indicted too for mishandling information. Why not go after Fauci? I mean, he lied. He did all these things. Millions of people died because he lied. He prevented medicine to be available for people during those lockdown years. You have a tremendous testimony about that was 6 years ago, almost 2 months ago, 6 years. It's when this whole thing started. They're trying to ramp it up again with some birds going around and you taking some kind of medicine from the government. But Jay, you can speak about what happened because that was 6 years ago. You went through a tremendous experience. You have a great testimony on that. And Fauci was at the center of all this because he lied to Congress, prevented medicine to be available for people, literally kill people.
I mean, yes. I mean, I spent about 45 days in a hospital with no visitors other than the hospital staff, and I can tell you firsthand the way things happened during good old 2020 was unprecedented, and it was scary because it's one thing to have someone, that there, but it's to have strangers in masks the whole time. And every single one of them was very short, and for the most part. I just want to say the reason why they're not going after Fauci, in my opinion, it leaves the plausible deniability, because if they go after Fauci, who's the person that empowered Fauci in the beginning? It would be the
Mm,
current president.
yeah.
So if you go after Fauci, you're almost admitting that Trump put his faith in the wrong person and Trump empowered the wrong person. So it becomes something of mishandling, and that's something the Trump administration doesn't ever do. It never admits it's wrong. So that's why you have to go at the scapegoat, the person
Yeah.
who probably was following orders has to fall on their sword, rather than the person who was really the one giving the orders and probably who benefited more.
Yeah, that's too bad because I mean he's not only guilty of of lying to Congress, he actually personally told people to delete emails. He personally told
Yeah.
people to delete your emails as far as back as February 2020 regarding what he believed was coming at the time. Something worse was coming. He said it, that Trump's going to have to deal with something really bad. So he's guilty of lying. He's guilty of cover up. He's guilty of deleting emails. He's guilty of, basically directing colleagues to lie. So, my goodness, I wish it was the case, Jay. I believe you're right. I think this guy is a man that they were just going to David Moran's, who, probably had a lot to do with it, but he is the one that they're turning in order to save the rest of them. So, unfortunately, this is true. I mean, flashback to 1980s. I mean, the same thing with the HIV virus and the AIDS virus.
He
He
sure did.
prevented medicine. Yeah,
He should have never been allowed to ever practice any type of authority over medicine after the blunder in the 80s. But
yeah.
yet they roll him out because, again, in my opinion, it he represents powerful powerful entities that want a shill that will do their bidding.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical industries.
Yeah. Jacob, I'm going to go to you. Maybe something a little bit less stressful than American politics is what's going on in the U.S. Israel Iran war, which is not supposed to be a war. I don't know, 62 days. Today, they have to go before Congress and argue that, well, the Democrats want this declaration of power. So basically, the president can no longer continue a war without Congress approval. It's 60 days. I believe it hit 62 days, but they're saying it's over. Congress needs to approve it. Trump is saying no. I've said the war has been over for 2 weeks. Pete Hegseth said it's been a ceasefire, so those days don't count. Where are we and where is this going to go now in terms of hitting our 62nd day of this so-called war? And Iran's in trouble. I think they're going to get rid of their foreign minister, Abbas Aragachi. I think he's gone. They're going to remove him.
My
And
argument,
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Take it away.
Mr. Trump's administration should make is that Congress has declared a war on terror, allowing the administration or any administration to attack terrorist targets that are inimical to the United States that present a threat to our national security. Okay? Iran fits the bill. It's killed many Americans. It calls us to great safety, and it says it's going to get us. You don't wait for another September 11th. You prevent one. And a September 11th with a nuclear weapon would be unthinkable. Congress has already given the president the mandate. They declared a war on terror. Now, I think the war on terror should have been a war on Saudi Arabia. I think Saudi Arabia should have been held as accountable for September 11th as Japan was for Pearl Harbor. But the Saudi Arabians had the Bush administration in their back pocket. He worked for the Saudis, not for America, in my opinion. So, but it was still passed by Congress, a war on terror. That should be his legal and legislative basis. Congress has already empowered him to fight terror, and here's the proof of his Iranian terror and other intentions against the United States. here's the Americans they've already killed. That is the approach you should take.
Mm. Yeah, that's being argued before Congress as we speak. So we'll see what happens. Maybe at the end of the episode, we'll know. Jacob, there's some Democrats on both sides. You have, John Fetterman says Iran is our greatest threat, that we need to get rid of them. We need to, too many people in Washington are losing sight, speaking of his own party. And then you have people like Chris Murphy, Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, who is rooting for the Iranians who are be
Wants
able
to read the
to
man.
block.
If that
Yeah,
man
the
is not
blockade.
guilty,
Go ahead.
that man is not guilty of something that reason would say is tantamount to treason. I don't know what else to call it. What a despicable individual.
It's naked openly, but they do nothing. They do nothing about it. I guess that's what they're good for. Do nothing.
It's a party of treason.
Yeah. Jacob, what about the meetings in Pakistan? It's been canceled twice already. Trump saying, I'm not sending JD Vance, the vice president, Kirshner or Witkoff there because the Iranians are not dealing with an honest dealing. They can't get anybody to negotiate because
They
yeah,
just want to
that
drag
is
as close as possible to the midterm congressional elections. They are not interested in negotiating. And even if they did, it would not be in good faith. And they would not keep any agreements that they didn't want to because their religion, and to them, this is a religious issue, permits them to engage in permissible lying to the infidel. You cannot negotiate with such people. The only way to make peace with somebody like a fundamentalist Muslim is to put him in his grave. There's no other way.
now out of the four that are supposed to be in charge of Iran. You got the RGC, you got the mullahs, the theocrats, you got, of course, elected parliament, and you have the regular military. They got rid of Abbas Araghchi today. Jacob, they're not sending anybody to Pakistan except for they're sending one guy to maybe meet with Putin. But nobody even knows what's going to happen in Iran because they're losing $500 million per day. They don't know where to put their oil. Is Iran in free fall?
Iran is in economic trouble by what Mr. Trump is doing. However, let us remember certain things. Some Chinese ships are still getting around the American blockade. United States does not want to militarily confront Chinese ships because they're afraid China would do the same in Taiwan, in the Straits of Formosa. So the American blockade is not 100% effective. China is still getting some oil. China has got to be dealt with in the right way. The Achilles heel of the Iranian regime is Karg Island. The Israelis need to say, if one more missile falls on Israel, fired from Iran, we're going to destroy Karg Island. The Israelis will do it. The United States needs to say, if one missile is shot at an American ship, we will destroy Karg Island. The Emirates have the right to say they have their own air forces, but they've not engaged in the fight. Being the parasites they are, and I don't trust them. I don't believe they have accords. I think these people are garbage, especially Qatar. Nonetheless, they have their own air forces. Notice they've not entered the fight. They want America and Israel to take care of Iran for them, but they themselves have not entered the fight. They need to say, if Iran attacks us, we're going to bomb Karg Island. They do have the fighter bomber capacity to do so, but I leave that to them. But America needs to say, you shoot at one American ship, we level Karg Island. Israel needs to say, one more missile comes to Israel, fired from Iran, we level Karg Island. They should use Karg Island as the gun they hold to Iran's head. That is what they need to do. They also need to say that these Russian planes that Turkey is allowing to fly over NATO airspace from Russia to resupply Turkey, that the United States will reciprocate and give more advanced weapon systems that we've not given so far to the Ukraine. You want to supply Turkey with advanced weapons to use against Americans? We're going to send some. We're going to reciprocate and send them to the Ukraine, which we haven't done so far. That's what they need to tell Putin.
Jacob, the oil inventories in Asia are plummeting right now, and they don't have much.
Yes.
They have maybe days or weeks. China maybe has 2 months from hitting operational minimums. This summer is going to be very interesting, to say the least, because they expect oil to
There's
go
enough
up.
oil at sea. There's still enough oil at sea to keep China liquid for some months.
Yeah, maybe two. Maybe two. It's what the best, at least Bassett, that's what he's saying. And in the forecast is, of course, that if the Strait of Hormuz keeps close, you may hit 140 to $150 a barrel, which in California, that sounds crazy, but it's going to be Memorial Day coming up pretty soon, which prices go up anyway. Um, what is the U.S. supposed to do? What is Asia supposed to do with no oil coming in? India gets about 2% of their, I think it's about 2% of the oil from there, and we get it even less. China's even more. But these nations are going to be in trouble soon.
Today, there's already May Day protests all over the world. Manila, Paris, a lot of places, blaming
Yeah,
America and Israel for the war that's driven the petroleum prices up higher. And that in turn results in the prices of other commodities transported by truck and so forth going higher. So it's already begun. The question is, how do we get the oil price down in the United States before the election?
good question.
That's
Now
the
here I'm going to ask you. Yeah, I'm going to ask you this. The OPEC received some very, very unfortunate news for OPEC. Out of the 12 nations, one of them pulled out. The UAE is pulled out of OPEC, so now there's down to 11 nations, and they cited that they're going to be getting a credit line from the U.S. Maybe they're struggling. I don't know. And they want to sort of set their own price on the free oil market that usually doesn't come with that. Usually, OPEC, the cartel, sets the price on the oil. Now it's going to be more free, seemingly. But what does this mean that the UAE is
Persian
pulling out?
Gulf.
Yeah,
In the Persian Gulf, there's not only the Shia Sunni divide between Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates. You have a division among the Sunnis between the Emirates and the Saudis. The Emirates and the Saudis realize that with the promulgation of electric vehicles, there's going to be less demand for petroleum and gasoline because the electricity needed to generate as a power source to fuel these vehicles is going to come from coal, somewhat from nuclear or increased nuclear, and on a lot of natural gas. It's not going to need oil as much. There's a lot of natural gas that comes from Qatar, but there are alternative sources, particularly the United States. So they realize this in the long term that they've got to make as much as they can on oil while they can. They do not want OPEC, dominated by Saudi Arabia, setting the prices and the quotas, setting the prices and the quotas. They don't want Saudi Arabia determining how much oil they can produce and how much they can sell. They want control of it themselves. They see the writing on the wall that gasoline and petroleum is not going to be long term what it is now.
right.
It's not in
So
the Western world.
I guess it's strike while the iron's hot sort of thing. You just gotta
That is
sell as much
correct.
as you can, as much as you can when you can. I mean, this started going back, Jacob, going back to the history of it. Roosevelt meets with the
Ozell, yes.
yeah, the Saudi prince at the USS Quincy, 1945, 2 weeks before he dies. Kind of sets the tone for the rest of the time, where now it's going to be Saudis will be protected. They'll sell the oil to us. Then you have OPEC in 1960, 5 nations, and expanded to 12. Now they're down to 11. Could you see,
Yes.
Jacob, a point
It
where,
began with Roosevelt. It began with
yeah,
Roosevelt,
yeah,
which
not
was
not
based
Nixon.
on security for oil, security
Yeah,
protection for oil. Began with Roosevelt. And the British were a minor partner in that. But it was oil for protection. But when Nixon defaulted on the dollar, then the, the replacement for gold, for
yep, was
bullion,
oil.
became oil.
That's right.
Okay. That is ending. That is ending. That is the issue that's at hand at present. What is
Now,
going to back the dollar as the basis of world currency reserves?
now, if China and Russia has been wanting to get this done, should they be happy about this?
The BRICS has not succeeded. The ruble is worthless. South African rand is a joke. The BRICS has not worked, and the euro is very precarious. The euro is also not a failed currency, but not a successful one. Um, and of course, now Bitcoin is unstable. So,
Yes.
what is going to replace the dollar? At this point, there is nothing going to replace the dollar. The dollar
Correct.
is there by default.
So what's the future, Jacob? A free market oil, basically, you set your price and you compete?
There will be an element of that in the spot market in Rotterdam. That'll be the dice game. You shoot the dice. Um, but essentially, again, as I've said, Donald Trump's plan is to shift power away from OPEC towards the
Yes.
United States.
Yeah. And
That
it's
began
happening.
with Venezuela. That began
That's
with
right.
Venezuela. And
That's
they
right.
need to build Keystone Pipeline to bring oil from Alberta, Canada, down to the Gulf of Mexico. That is what needs to happen. That is the essential plan to take the power away from OPEC and put it into the hands of the United States, and to take the Brent price and replace that with the WTI price, and to take the spot market in Rotterdam and bring that to New York. Donald Trump wants to make the United States the major player in oil. Um, Again, with the fragmentation of OPEC, it's well on the way. These countries are coming to the United States now to buy oil. So while we know the downside, the price Americans are paying at the pump, there is an upside. People are having to buy our oil at a high price. This is not good for China.
No,
And
no, not at all.
it's not good for China, and Russia is sidelined almost. So it's a cloud with a silver lining. It is a cloud with a silver lining. They're having to buy our oil at a higher price as long as the Straits of Hormuz are closed. People will have to shift to North America to get the oil. That'll give America tremendous leverage uh, over China to a substantial extent. Um, Now, the problem is by keeping it closed, people vote with their pocketbook. And with the
Yes.
midterms coming up, and you're paying $4 or $5 a gallon for gasoline in the United States, you're paying European prices, the prices Europeans have always paid. That is politically unpopular in an election year. And the Iranians know that. That is why they want to drag out any negotiations. They
That
want
makes
it,
sense.
they want another Biden or another Democrat who they know will sell America down the river the way Biden and Obama did.
So potentially cheaper prices, perhaps in a little bit of some
If
respite, some
the
relief.
regime in Iran collapses, financially collapses, and the straits are opened, the price of oil will drop like a boulder.
Yeah, I no doubt believe that. I'm going to go to Elon. Elon, real quick. Let's pivot to Israel and what's going on there. Today we heard from Minister Katz, that Iran better be ready. We're going to resume a campaign against them. Some signals that it's not just over because there's a ceasefire. There'll be some signals that there's some signals saying that we're going to move forward in regime change, which is probably what they want ultimately. And then the Lebanon ceasefire, the Israel-Lebanon ceasefire. Let's comment on those two things.
So, firstly, in regards to Iran, yeah, the only acceptable long-term outcome really is that there be a regime change. We can't put up with that genocidal bunch of nutters ready, carrying on as they are because, given the opportunity, they will just carry on as normal. It would be business as usual unless something is done that they will, and as soon as they have opportunity, they will attempt to create a nuclear weapon, which they can fire at us. I mean, and that's their avowed aim. So, we can't just let this thing roll by. So on that front, um, I think Katz is absolutely right. And as far as the ceasefire in the Lebanon is concerned, it's not entirely. It's well, the Hezbollah have been breaking it with quite regularly, actually. I mean, they've been
Yes.
firing stuff at Israeli troops there, but also northern towns like Metula, Kiryat Shmona, places like that have been getting the Hezbollah treatment, not to the same extent as they did in 2023 or something, but definitely things are still being fired there. And so, we haven't quite. I mean, Bibi gave a speech recently that, for the most
Right.
part, we have dealt with a lot of the Hezbollah, what's the word, potential to damage Israel. I mean, we reduced their rocket supply, it is believed now, we've reduced it by about 90%.
Right.
And so so they have then approximately a far less, maybe about 15,000 missiles left or something like that, because they had over 100, it was estimated over 150,000 rockets and missiles of different types. So we've dealt with most of their capacity there, but they have other things that they're using now, like these mini drones with wire guided, fiber optic
Yes.
wire guided that have a range of about 7 miles from the
Yeah, I saw
operator.
those.
And
Yeah, I
I
saw
mean,
those. They're incredible. I'm like, those are the ones they used in the Ukraine war.
yeah, they're nasty little things because they can just drop on you with about 6 kilos of explosive,
Yes.
and they're very accurate because they can be guided by the operator to the target with a live video feed.
Mm.
And of course, because they're not wireless, they are wired. They're not giving out radio signals which can be detected so easily. So they're dangerous little things. So these are the two things that BB talked about in regard to the Lebanon. So largely we've dealt with most of the big stuff. There's two things left. The possibility that the Hezbollah will use these larger 122 millimeter rockets, and the second thing is these drones, which can be very accurately guided. And it's still at the moment we haven't developed an effective way of dealing with them. So that's what's left in the Lebanon at the moment.
Yeah, Jacob, the Trump says 2 to 3 week deadline. Hezbollah keeps firing. I think they killed a soldier today, an IDF soldier today, injured 15 in some of these drone attacks. They also found large bunkers. I mean, we're talking about huge bunkers that were detected, 140 meters long. People can live in them like quarters, like barracks, operational shafts, numerous weapons found in there. It was a lot worse than what people claim. Hezbollah was very much armed to the teeth, ready to go. They're still very dangerous. Could this be some kind of ceasefire and get Hezbollah out of there, or is Lebanon too entrenched with Hezbollah?
Lebanon has twice had a state within a state. One was set up by Yasser Arafat following Black September, when tens of
Yes.
thousands of Arafat's followers were driven out of Jordan by King Hussein and the Jordanian Legion in Black September. They came to Lebanon, and Arafat set up a government of his own, which you call the Palestinian government in exile. And there were other factions like the Popular Front for Liberation of Palestine and others. But Arafat set up a state within a state. He was driven out by the Israelis and relocated his so-called government in exile to Tunisia. At that particular point, the Lebanese could have and should have made a deal with Israel for diplomatic recognition along the lines of Camp David and what was agreed with the Jordanians. Instead, they didn't. And the Syrians and Iranians moved in under Assad being backed by Iran. And as they put in their state within a state, which morphed into what we know as Hezbollah, was controlled via Syria from Iran, now controlled directly by Iran. For the second time, Lebanon has a state within a state, a government within its own country that's not its own government. The best thing that the Lebanese can do is to have military cooperation with the Israelis, certainly at least a coordination to obliterate and remove Hezbollah the way that the Israelis drove out Arafat, let them drive out Hezbollah, and do it with the cooperation of the Lebanese government. I would point out that there is a lot of resentment in Lebanon against Syria and Iran because of the killing of Hariri by Syrian intelligence at the behest of Iran. A lot of people in Lebanon would support it. Certainly, the Druze population of Lebanon, led by Wali Jumbalat's people, have a camaraderie with the Druze population in Israel and the pro-Israel Druze population in Syria. They are an extended religious ethnic community. Similarly, the Maronite Catholic refugees in Israel, who Israel accepted, would have co-religionists in Lebanon who would welcome a rapprochement with Israel. It is a time for a Camp David type agreement that would have an economic aspect and a security aspect between Israel and Lebanon. It worked with Jordan. It may be a precarious peace, but it's better than war. And it works with Egypt. It may be a precarious peace, but it's better than a war. At least Lebanon would be Lebanon. It would not have a state within a state. It would not have a government within a government. And Israel is its key to getting back its national sovereignty and foreign control by Iran and Syria and whoever else. This would be backed or certainly welcomed and supported by the United States, probably the British, and also probably by the French. This is what Lebanon needs to do. Lebanon has an opportunity. They should not blow it. One of its former prime ministers is basically urging this.
Yeah, the Lebanese former president is asking the current president to do it. Like, let's negotiate with Israel. We haven't negotiated with them since the 80s. This is our time. But Jacob, they also want to get Riyadh involved. They want to get Saudi Arabia involved because they were the ones who brokered some kind of peace deal in the 90s. It wasn't even a peace deal. It was just a civil war going on.
President of Lebanon, who was a Saudi citizen as well. He was a dual national. That's how the Saudis are involved. But Saudi Arabia also means something else. It means economic aid.
Yeah, they're going back to that. And would that be something good, Jacob? I mean, it's pro-diplomacy, but I just don't trust Riyadh at all.
If you get rid of Hezbollah and you let Lebanon be Lebanese, the way it was supposed to be, the original design of Lebanon, when the French moved out after World War I, was Syria would be Syria. Lebanon would have a government that would be Christian-led, but the Jews could have their areas and the Muslims could have their areas, but it would essentially be a Christian-led government. There is no Arab Christian nation. Lebanon was destroyed by Islamization. That needs to be reversed. The original idea that the French had for Lebanon is what needs to be restored. They would like have a speaker of their parliament who was a moderate Muslim. The president would be a Christian, and the prime minister would be a Christian. Now Christian, I mean Maronite Catholic, Eastern Orthodox, something like that. I don't mean evangelical or born again Christian. That is what the original idea for France was. That was the Lebanon that once existed.
Yeah.
The first time it began to be upset was in the 1950s. American President Eisenhower landed American Marines to stop Lebanon from becoming what it became. When Reagan put American Marines in Lebanon, it ended in a disaster. It ended in a complete disaster when Reagan did it. It also ended in an imbroglio for Israel when Menachem Begin did it. But now the opportunity is here. The Lebanese need to coordinate with the Israelis to remove this state within a state, to remove this alien Iranian controlled government, get rid of it, and let Lebanon be Lebanon.
Yeah, I guess time will tell whether they do it or not. I just don't trust Riyadh just as much as I don't
It
trust
would be the
Pakistan to
economic
deal.
interests of Lebanon to have peace with Israel.
It would be, but if the Saudis are involved, who knows, right? Just like Pakistan, if
Well,
they're involved in the
Saudis
ceasefire.
probably now, the Saudis now are less belligerent towards Israel because of the Iran factor. I don't have a lot of faith in this Abraham Accord, but I
Yeah,
don't think there'd be a lot of Saudi opposition. Who might oppose it would be the Muslim Brotherhood, who control Qatar, which in turn controls uh, Tucker Carlson.
yeah, and there's a rift really in Lebanon between officials
So
who want to go toward the Israeli plan and those who don't. So there's still
that's
very
right.
much a rift within Lebanon.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's not happening that's not stopping anytime soon. Elon, let's talk about Netanyahu for a minute. Update on his health, his trial, and the hatred against him, because I mean, this man can't do anything without some kind of hatred from the left. The left absolutely hates him. Good thing they're not in control of it. Otherwise, we'll be singing a different tune at the moment. But you got elections coming up at the end of the year. Maybe sooner than October, but maybe that's where it's scheduled. Lapid and Bennett are joining together. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay, well, first of all, Netanyahu's health thing, he had a tiny amount of malignant material removed. This was some time ago now, a few weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
Um, he said himself that when something was detected, he had it dealt with very quickly, rather than leave it lying around. And that's the way he likes to think about also the way he does politics and war as well, and threats to the country. Deal with them before they become a big problem. So, but
Yes.
he was only in hospital for a short while, and of course he's bounced back straight away. So I don't think there's any fears for his long-term health from the prostate issue. Oh, the Bennett, Bennett and Lapid, yeah. This was, this is actually, well, it's quite funny. I mean, we did this on the Israel report a few days ago, where a former minister, I think it's Ben Saur, I think now he's still in MK, but he was a former minister, described Naftali Bennett as unstable because I mean he's changed political parties about as often as he changes his socks.
Mm,
He's been through about five different political parties already. He originally presented himself as a right-wingish kind of figure, but I mean, when he actually got into power, he only did so through a coalition with some of the most extreme Arab parties as well, and the left as well. So people felt quite betrayed by Bennett, actually. There was a sense of national disgust
yeah.
from that he would do that because, of course, these Arab parties are anti-Zionist, they're anti-Israel, really. I mean, and some of them even probably have links to the Muslim Brotherhood. So that was very distasteful, to say the least. So can you trust somebody that changes, that doesn't seem to have, what's the word, any solid ideology or principle other than to get into power? That's the way I would look at this. I mean, it's like. How do you describe? There are. I mean, when you compare that with Bibi, he has a very strong nationalist ideology. He believes in the security and viability and continuation of the state and the Jewish people. These are very strong, motivating things. They're core values that he has. With and with Bennett, you're not sure. I mean, you're not sure when someone allies with these Arab parties. I mean, to get into power, that's disgusting, actually, because they're certainly not in favor of the continuation of a Jewish state. You know, so it's
Yes.
really it's tainted him, and it's his own fault. Because also Bennett is one of the is kind of part of the anti BB. We don't want anything but BB kind of axis, really. There's no love lost between him and BB. I could tell you. So, and the reason why he's joined up with Lapid is so that they can generate together. That if they're combined, they may or they hope to generate enough votes to be able to pass the electoral threshold. Personally, I hope they don't. You know, and really that they disappear into political oblivion would be a very good thing.
Oh yeah.
But
I guess they're trying to get to that point, October 26th. They want to join together to run against Bibi. Who knows? There were two that were prime ministers at one time. I mean, that's a scary thought that they were actually in power
yeah,
in 2022, just prior to the October 7th, 2023. God knows what that would have been like if you had
oh
any of those or
yeah,
both, at the helm at the moment. Jacob, I'm going to go to you real quick. Netanyahu's been attacked, criticized, constant criticism. His family, very similar to Trump, although he might be a little more popular in Israel than Trump is at the moment. But what kind of
Even
outcome do we
victim of
expect
a form
for
of warfare.
2026? Yeah,
Even
what
he
kind of
was even
outcome?
target of warfare.
Yeah, they got a trial coming up soon, which we haven't talked about that. But let's talk about it now. There's corruption charges. He supposedly has some Qatar agents in his cabinet or his administration. Who knows what that is like? But what do you think the outcome's going to be, even with the election coming up in October?
In my view, all of these things will be very difficult to legally substantiate,
yeah,
particularly the idea of Qatari agents. He knows very well the government of Qatar is controlled by the Muslim Brotherhood. Um, I do think these are largely politically motivated, even though there may be some culpability by himself. The charges are politically driven. The real issue should be what confronted Golda Meir in 1973. A surprise attack happened on your watch. That's the issue. That is the legitimate complaint concerning the premiership of Bibi Netanyahu. The surprise attack happened on your watch. Everything else is a politically orchestrated diversion. That should be the issue. That would be the question I would have. Bearing in mind, politically, I'm more supportive of him than I am of his opponents.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting because they might have it in June, they might have it in October. Depends how the situation works out. But it's in the middle of a war. I can't imagine them changing prime ministers. Would you, Jacob?
No, no, this war has gone on, and it's been his saving grace because a day of reckoning would have come sooner.
That's true. That's true. Elon, I know the West Bank, it's at a boiling point right now because of what they call Jewish settler violence. And there's an uprising from the Palestinian or the occupiers there of the West Bank, we call Judea and Samaria. But it's not just the West Bank. I'm going to go to the UK, as well as Belgium, as well as Netherlands, as well as France, as well as Germany. There is a definite target on Jews,
mm,
European Jews. And
yeah,
this warfare is a little bit different because it's being now reported that it is done by this movement called the Islamic Movement of Companions of the Right, which we don't know yet, but it seems to be a proxy of the Iranian regime.
yeah,
Two people were stabbed in the Jewish area in North London a couple of days ago. In Belgium, you had a car that was lit on fire, basically exploded, an empty car in front of a Jewish synagogue in Antwerp. There was another attack. There was an attack in the Netherlands. There was attack in France, like I said, in Germany. But let's focus on the UK one. You can go broadly to Europe, not just the West Bank, but now there is definitely an uprising of attacks against Jews, if not already, but now we've hit another crescendo.
Well, this is the direct result of a number of different things. One of them, of course, is these calls to globalize the Intifada. Well, this is what globalizing the Intifada looks like. Killing Jews in the diaspora, that's what it looks like. Attacking Jewish targets. And I would unhesitatingly say that this is done with the that the UK government, the current government, is directly complicit in all of this and will do
Yes.
absolutely nothing substantial to prevent it. There'll be a few cosmetic things here and there, maybe, and a few words of sympathy murmured. But when you have a Home Secretary who was actually involved in, pro-Hamas marches and calling for, from the river to the sea, Palestine shall be free, etc., etc., you've got a radical Muslim terror supporting person as the Home Secretary. There's no way anything substantial to prevent these attacks will happen. I mean, the fact that the UK government, the Labour Party, is filled with anti-Semitism. It's been a problem in the past under Jeremy Corbyn, but the fact that you've got an anti-Semite as the Home Secretary. The Home Office is full of them. You know, this is engineered, and of course, Keir Starmer himself refused to uh, proscribe the IRGC to ban it as a terrorist organization. It's an engineered crisis. This is, and it's of course it's driving Jewish Aliyah now to Israel from the UK. I mean, it's gone up considerably over the last year, and it's expected only to increase because Jews are no longer seeing that they have a viable future there, a safe
Hmm.
place to be. So this is very sad, but I think the history of Jews in the UK is coming to an end.
Hmm. Jacob, this attack on happened in North London, Highfield Avenue and Golders Green. You know that area pretty well. Large Jewish community
Yes.
there. Two men, 34 and 76 were stabbed. Again, it is confirmed that this is an organization. This is a terrorist group calling themselves. Well, they don't even call themselves that. It's a long name in Arabic, but it's Islamic Movement of Companions, probably closely aligned with the Iranian regime. Jewish schools have been targeted, synagogues have been targeted, not just in
Ambulances.
London,
They
several,
attacked
several.
ambulances. They
Yes,
attacked ambulances.
yeah, four of them this year alone. So, I agree with Elon. It's coming to a head. Some decision making needs to be made. Starmer called it an anti-Semitic attack. We're going to do everything to destroy anti-Semitism and all this stuff. He was booed. He was booed, and he was called kinds of, Stalin, Nazi. This is people that are
Well, he
had it,
is.
that had it with them.
He
Yes.
is. Well, there's been major attacks on the Jewish communities in London, Hendon, Golders Green, Temple Forge, in that area, and also in Manchester, Prestwich. The two biggest Jewish communities in London and Manchester
Yeah.
have been hit devastatingly. The Jews in Leeds, the third biggest Jewish community, are quite terrified because of the large Islamic community in neighboring Bradford. And
Mm,
similarly, in Gateshead, because of the Islamic community that is in the Newcastle area. Jews in Britain are becoming increasingly frightened, increasingly frightened. They've been deluded into a false sense of security, and that sense of security is gone. This government has done nothing but pander to Islam, including radical Islam. They will not even defend British people from radical Islam. These Islamic pimp crime gangs pimping off underage English girls, the police were politically pressured from doing anything so as not to offend the Muslim community. This is what goes on in Britain. They're not, the Jews are sacrificial lamb. They don't care about the British, let alone the Jews. This is the reality in a post Judeo Christian Great Britain. But it's not
Yeah.
only Britain. Britain is just perhaps um, the most advanced in the trend. Australia is not much better. Canada is certainly not much better. And in New York City, it's not much better under Mamdani. Um, this is what it's coming to. Increased anti-Semitism. Zechariah chapter 12. Anti-Semitism will increase before Jesus returns, and so will persecution of Christians.
Yeah.
And Islam is Satan's sword. Not his only one. The homosexual lobby is another, but certainly Islam is a major one. And when we've had corrupt politicians, Barack Obama, Joseph Biden, George Bush, on the side of the Islamists, of the
Yeah.
people who fund it, of the Saudi Arabian government, of the Council of American Islamic Relations. When you've had people betray their own countries, like Bush did after September 11th, or like Biden and Obama did, they'll betray their own countries. What do you expect? What do you expect?
Yeah, Jacob, I wanted to let you know this, and everybody here can comment on it. It's the U.S. House of Representatives to consider resolution condemning anti-Semitism, and they're going to use specific names. They actually use specific names on this, which is kind of unique. They actually are going to condemn the rhetoric of Hassan Piker. We talked about that here. Candace Owens, we talked about that here. Other people like who's the other guy? Omar, and of course Talib, and even Representative GOP former Representative Marjorie Taylor for the anti-Semitic rhetoric. Is this good, bad, indifferent, too late, or is just symbolic?
Part of the problem is even younger Republicans are less pro-Israel than older Republicans. The
Hmm.
Democratic Party must be seen as anti-Jewish, certainly anti-Zionist. Do not expect every Democrat to vote for it. Expect Democrats to vote against it. Um, you've got people who are just enemies of Israel. Barack Obama was an enemy of Israel, if you look at his actual policies. Elizabeth Warren is an enemy of Israel. She actually endorsed that Nazi uh, Plattner in Maine to be a U.S. senator. Um, again,
Yeah, the
the
guy
anti-Semitic
with the Nazi tattoo.
anti-Zionist
Yeah.
while I welcome the legislation, I know it'll be opposed by Democrats and by some Republicans.
Jay, Hassan Piker, Owens, are you surprised that they went after seemingly one on the left and one on the right, but I consider them both the same?
I'm not surprised. I mean, Owens has progressively gotten crazier and crazier with her accusations. She's definitely, I mean, I have my tinfoil hat. She has a much bigger one and it's much more shiny. She seems to blame everything on the Jews. And as for Hassan Piker, I mean, talk about a man who carries the water for Islam. You don't get better a better paid propagandist than him.
Yeah, I mean, he is the prototypical, what we say, the Democrat who he runs, by the way, he runs with the Democrats, political rallies. He's does fundraising with them. I mean, he's called for the death of people online. He's a big influencer. He's what you would call one of the problems, right, with anchor baby laws. He was born in
Hmm.
America by Turkish parents, taken to Turkey, lived there for most of his life, came back as a U.S. citizen. He could run for president if you can imagine that. He supports that Michigan senator or congressman that it's going to run in Michigan who is pro-Hamas. I mean, it is unbelievable that they actually would have someone like that. And then you have Candace
Yeah.
Owens, who, by all means, I mean, we can make fun of her and how dumb she sounds and all that, but she is very popular among women, liberal women. She has her Stanley. She has all these things that she does. and all the rhetoric and crazy stuff. I mean, she talks about astral projection, having a third eye. You know, she probably was in love with Charlie Kirk at one point or another. Attacks Christians. He claims to be a Christian, but attacks Christians who support Israel. I mean, on and on. What else can we say? Jacob Prash. She was speaking at a Catholics for Catholics, I think it was, but it might as well have just been like a Candace Owens show.
That is part of her delusion. I even suspect there may be a demonic element in what's happened to her. When she married this English guy who was a Catholic and converted to Catholicism, that seemed to coincide with her turning against Israel and her turning to the position that she did with the crazy conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Why was such an articulate and otherwise intelligent woman have turned like that? Is it something demonic? Well, I'm sure there is at least a demonic element to it. But she's an absurd figure. She says absurd things now. For a woman of her intelligence, who has presented such cogent argumentation against the left on so many issues, to have lost her mind so rapidly, how do you explain that? Unless there's a demonic element to it. How do you explain it? She's become a buffoon. So is Tucker Carlson, obviously. But he was
Yeah.
somebody who obviously he's Tucker Carlson. He is not an honest man, and she is not an honest woman.
Jacob, real quick, I'll push a little bit on this. We might call them foolish, we call them liars, and all that is true. But boy, are they popular. Boy, she
Yep.
carries a lot of weight, millions of people. I'm going to show you this graph here. This is Tucker Carlson. This is independent coverage of the Iran war. And boy, he is beating his own numbers in Fox, beating Fox, bigger than Joe Rogan at his peak. These are people that are carrying quite a number of quite a large number of influence going into an election year. Owens, Tucker, are they going to have that much influence on young people? So young people are the ones who are watching this, by the way, because the older people are more of on cable news network. That's where Fox is, and traditionally Fox viewers. Now Tucker's got his own network. Candace has got his own episodes and shows and things like that. Independent media. This is where young people are going.
And funding is coming from where? Qatar.
Probably the Middle East, yeah, Qatar, absolutely. It's incredible how people misunderstand the magnitude of Carlson and Owens because we might say, well, aren't you talking about them long enough? We mentioned them so many times. But I like to say it's people underestimate how popular they are within, let's say, moderate to right wing, even conservatives on the
Yes.
issue of Israel, on the issue of Christians. Here's another one. This is, our favorite pastor, Joel Webbon, tongue in cheek,
Eesh.
who is a Reform pastor who might as well be Tucker Carlson, might as well be Candace Owens. Jewish supremacy, Jewish specialism, ideological convictions. Jews are not very, they're not very special. All these things, and attacking, by the way, in this article, attacking Christians who are for Israel. So this is also coming
Yeah.
from Christians.
Yes. This is coming within the church. We have
And of
often
course,
said
yeah, go ahead.
that someone's position on Israel doctrinally is going to be one of the issues that will divide the harlot
Yeah.
church from the bride of Christ. It'll divide the apostate church from the true church. And the position on Israel will be one of them. We just did a teaching on this in Baltimore, here in the United States, a few weeks ago. It's available online on it might be on the Moriel website, Moriel TV, but it's certainly on the Open Door TV website. I suggest you watch it. We point out that the position on Israel will be one of the key issues dividing the harlot church from the bride of Christ. And Joel Webbon is obviously part of the harlot. He's a speaker for the harlot.
Jay, I don't know if you ever watched Joe Webbon's episodes, but he's got a quite a popular podcast. He invites some very radical people. I mean, he's even talked about that Nick Fuentes is actually a pretty right on guy, believe it or
Oh, good
not.
grief.
Believe it or not. He's supposed to be a pass, but I guess his ideology overtakes anything else that could be discussed, in terms of biblical prophecy, in terms of biblical ethics and things like that. His ideology is no, if you are aligned, if you're against the Jews, you're aligned with me, no matter where you come from.
So I take it that he's really into replacement theology.
Oh,
So
very much beating the drums.
so he's aligned with the Eastern Orthodox. He's aligned with Catholicism. The church replaces Israel. They have no. There's no special. These are, and this is where the growth in Christianity, quote unquote, is actually happening in
Yes.
these specific camps. These are the ones that are going after the young and are capturing the young's minds. Anything that's
I believe he is
anti-Semitic.
reformed, isn't he, James? James, he's
Yes, he is.
reformed.
Oh, yeah, 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 he is. We mentioned that earlier, that
By
he's a reformed pastor.
the way, he subscribes to covenant theology. So doctrinally, he's doctrinally totally off the rails biblically anyway.
I
His
guess he
very
doesn't.
foundation, his very
Yeah.
foundation theologically is faulty.
But Jay, to your point, I don't think it matters to Christian, right? What Jacob said, it doesn't really matter to them. I don't think they would know what covenant theology is if it hit them in the face.
No,
And
they don't.
they just have an ideology. We don't like the Jews, and so they will accumulate teachers according to their own desires.
Yeah. And he is a symptom of I mean, we talk about this in why this time is different ad nauseum. This is just a symptom of where the world's heading. We're seeing
Yes.
that same atmosphere right now in real time. And it started with the Islamization of Europe, and now it's pushing into the anti-Semitic leaning of quote unquote Christianity.
Yeah, and you
And
know what's interesting? If you were to go into let's look at some dollars, right? Advertising dollars that come into this. Why do people want to promote Jewish hatred, anti-Semitism, replacement theology? It's because it gets the most hits. It's kind of like the Erica
Yeah,
Kirk effect. I'm not sure if you know about
yeah.
that one, Jay, the Erica Kirk effect, that she doesn't sell a product. She doesn't have a service. She's just an organization. She's a widow, in dealing with the grief of the loss of her husband. However, if you were to look her up on Google, or she's always trending on Twitter, and advertising dollars go toward anybody that speaks against or brings her up in any of a conversation. And so a lot of these YouTubers, influencers have a incentive, have a dollar incentive to promote an attack on Erica Kirk. That's why I'm saying Candace Owens is not dumb. She knows what she needs to talk about in order for the dollars to come in. You know what the next topic is that brings dollars, Jay?
conspiracy.
Starts with an I and it ends with an L.
I
Israel.
Israel.
Israel. Yeah.
Israel. Yeah, that's the next topic. You know what the third one is? Starts with the J, ends with an S.
J
Jews.
and oh.
Jews. Yeah. So
So
what
these are
do,
the topics that people are that advertisers are paying to push to the
yes,
top.
yes. Somebody's paying, somebody's pushing lots of dollars, lots of money. We're talking millions to um, promote these names, these terms. If you actually use this in your podcast, use this in your in your post, then people are going to gravitate to that. You can monetize your blog, you can monetize your post, you can monetize your videos a lot more than if you don't talk about it. So guess what? Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Joel Webben, and et cetera, talk about the most. Those
Well, it
three
just reminds
topics.
me of Christ's word, what does a man profit if he gains the whole world yet sells his soul? Those who
Yeah.
are speaking against the Jews and Israel, they are selling their souls for a few shekels.
Yeah. That's all it
And
is.
what
It's
is that
30
going to
shekels
do
of
for
silver.
against eternity in their soul?
That's right. And this is what we're up against as Christians, Christians who don't agree and are, we align biblically with what Scripture says in terms of the prophetic purposes of God for Israel and the church. We're up against this. And there's a lot of
Yeah.
money for people that, let's just say, are not even interested in it. They're not even interested in it, but because of the monetary compensation, they will post, they will retweet, they will do all these things. So it is unfortunate that we're running up against this, but we don't battle against flesh and blood. There are spiritual
Yeah.
things behind this, against Christians, against Jews, against Israel. And there's a monetary value to them. And then, as Jacob talked about, there's a demonic element to it. Of course, um, these Christians wouldn't say that there's a demonic element. I don't think Joe Webben believes he's demonically possessed or anything like that. But he doesn't see that, his rhetoric and hatred of the Jews, which he wouldn't say he hates the Jews. Yeah, I don't think he would say, like, if you question, I don't think he would say that. I think he probably would say, I have few friends that are Jews or something like that, right?
Yeah, he would say that, but
Yeah,
his actions speak exactly the opposite.
yeah, I know.
You
This
know
is
what
this is nuts.
what's really kind of interesting is, like, for example, we named a few, but like Matt Getz, who used to be
Yes,
really Matt Gates used to be really great.
yeah,
Now he's doing the
I
same
like them.
thing. He's reporting on anything that has to do with Jews doing something conspiratorial. Again, why is that?
Mm.
We're bringing it up.
Yeah, shekels coming in, money coming in. So now we're not doing that. We're not doing this because of that. We don't get any compensation for that. We're not Tucker Carlson. We don't get money from Qatar. But it would be interesting, right? How many so-called Christians or so-called ministries have turned a blind eye to all this because they don't want to get the backlash. And at the same time, some of them have turned against Israel because they know that if there are no Jews, if they mention Jews, as we say, if you mention Jews, they're going to be views. No Jews, no views, as they say. And so they have an incentive to do it. It's sort of like, remember we talked about Animal Farm? How
Mhm.
there's
Yeah.
some conservative Christian, influencers who are now promoting
Influencers
the
that make
movie.
money. Yeah.
Jay, how does that work within Hollywood? I mean, you're not allowed to speak against, obviously, against your own movie, and Angel Studios have refused to comment on it when people have called them out. But now all these celebrities and Christian influencers are going like, "It's the greatest movie ever."
Well, understand, whatever you spend to actually make a movie, there's usually times two on a marketing budget. So that marketing budget can buy a lot of influencers to say that this is great. It
Hmm.
used to be like traditional print, traditional people like Siskel and Ebert.
Yeah.
These critics, you bought their time. But it's so
Yes.
much cheaper to have someone not even watch the movie and just say how great it is because, oh, don't you love George Orwell?
I love them. I love Animal Farm. I read it when I was in high school. I loved it. I came from a communist country. My family escaped communism. We know what it's like, and I will always go against communism and socialism. I think it's evil, evil, anti-Christian, anti-God. And then to hear Christians or celebrities that call themselves Christians saying all these things, it's like, why were you doing this? It's again, it's money. It's
I
money.
mean,
And
to your point, Marco, something you could sell immediately and probably get funded. You put a mustache on Donald Trump, and then you make a remake of 1984 with him as Big Brother. I mean,
you got it.
Hollywood would line up outside my door and say, "Oh, you've got the script? Here,
Yeah.
here's a couple $1 million. Go make it."
I know, Jay, you and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, it's such a temptation to try to do something like that, to sell your soul.
Yeah.
It's like, you wouldn't do it, but it's like, that's how easily it could become. It's just
Yeah,
become
well,
like, hey, sell out, and you'll do it. Jacob Prash, I wanted to, a couple of subjects, and we're done, is the issue of, how do we call it? Aliens and demons, but they're not
Yeah.
called aliens and demons. They call them interdimensional being. I'm going to play a video for you. This is Anna Paulina. She is a U.S. representative from Florida, and this is what she had to say.
Oh, the interdimensional beings is what our witnesses will call these things. I have seen evidence in a skiff that leads me to believe there are things we cannot explain, and I have observed things that are of non-human origin and creation. That's my opinion. Again, but there has been a declassification order from the president, and you will see as soon as that stuff comes up.
And also Marco Rubio on a movie called The Age of Deception. I think it's called Age of Disclosure. Sorry, Age of Disclosure.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours.
These are otherworldly things that are performing maneuvers that haven't been seen.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
This is so secret. There have been very few people in our entire government that have been allowed or provided access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis, but that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees. People have been hurt protecting and hiding this information.
Some people claim it would cost them their lives if they spoke out about these things.
You had information being locked away that could change the trajectory for species.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
Yeah, Newsmax ran a whole episode on this, which was really interesting. Newsmax did a whole series on it, and it's about conservatives and even Christians. Jacob Prasch, Christians in the government saying this is true. Tim Burchett, Polina, Marco Rubio, who claims I think he's Catholic, but at least are saying these are not just the typical UFO aliens. They're interdimensional being, aka angels and demons. They're willing to call it out. What are we dealing with here?
I'd point people to a book written by John Ankerberg's ghostwriter, my friend who's now with the Lord, John Weldon, co-wrote a book with Zola Levitt on the demonic nature of UFOs. I'm one of a number of people, and I'm far from the only one. I discovered there were many others who, since the 1970s, have been convinced that extraterrestrial phenomena is of a demonic nature, and it probably relates to the prophecy of Jesus that it will be just like the days of Noah, in which the Nephilim, of course, came to earth, the fallen ones. Now, because there's been so many conspiracy theories and wild conjectures about the Nephilim, we've shied away from it. Nonetheless, Jesus was emphatic, just as it was in the days of Noah. I have never had any doubt that these things are of a demonic nature, and it's one of the things the Antichrist and false prophet are going to use to deceive people, these signs and wonders in the sky. I'm thankful to the Lord that there are some Christians in government who are on the same page as I am. But I do think the world is going to fall for it. The world will fall for this deception.
Jay, why do we need to understand it? Because there's some Christians who would say, well, you're getting into things that are not even biblical. They're not even, it's a far-fetched conspiracy. The government's been hiding all this, so it's just going to be weapons anyway, so it's not going to be really anything to disclose. I'd beg to differ, but why do we need to understand this in order to be a good witness for the Lord in these days?
It's always a battle about the youth. It's always a battle about the next generation. Okay, if you can use extraterrestrials to discredit religion, you've got an entire generation that's ready to be programmed with whatever you want. Whether if it's little green men from, the other side of the universe, or whether it's a disclosure that the government is a bunch of people that are skinwalkers, that are reptiles. You've got a generation of gullible young people that will abandon religion, will abandon Christ for a lie. And that's the problem, is you have to face it head on, because you look at the money they put behind it. This is something that's going to South by Southwest. This is something that probably is going to get distribution widely. There's interest in it. So again, if you're gonna actually be an apologist, if you're actually gonna do evangelism, you have to
Yeah.
understand what people are fascinated in.
I agree with you because if you don't know what people are thinking and what the zeitgeist is all about at the at the time, you're not going to be able to be a good and effective witness. In my opinion, you need to understand what people are thinking, how they're thinking, what their views are, and be able to counter their point with the gospel and be able to counter their point with the truth. This is going to be interesting if well, Donald Trump did sign the executive order to disclose this. We don't know when they're going to come out, but as the film said, it's the age of disclosure. Something's going to come out. I think people are going to lose a lot of things that they believe in today are going to be probably shocked in terms of how much stuff is out there. And again, it's about deception. It's about deception. It's about a spiritual battle. It's about Satan being coming as an angel of light. Of course, there's people that, because of Hollywood, because of the media, they believe these things are true. They believe aliens are, somewhat, whatever it is that they think of are real. You know what? I think there was a psychiatrist who discovered, this is interesting, and people could look it up. I forget the name of the psychiatrist who looked up and interviewed people that have been abducted by aliens. And in each one of the cases, the psychiatrist was able to run a test, and by naming the name of Jesus, the actual alien encounter or abduction would stop whenever
Correct.
Jesus was mentioned. And it was fascinating. He was fascinated about it because it was like, well, what is it? Why are aliens so interested in Jesus? What's the connection there? Why do they care so much about Jesus? They don't care about Buddha or Hinduism or Islam, but they care a lot about Jesus.
Yeah.
Interesting. Elon, I'm going to finish with you. Last topic of the day. It is the Doomsday Cult. The Doomsday Cult, I guess near the region where you grew up. The Ahmadi
Well, it's
religion of
about
peace and
40
love.
miles away from where I grew up,
That's
but yes.
close enough. Closer than me. Closer than me. The Ahmadi religion of peace and light, Doomsday Cult. These people are absolutely insane. It's some kind of a ecumenist Shiite religion, I guess you can put it that way. You turned me on to it by telling me though that the Abdullah Hashem, the Egyptian American, the leader of the cult, they raided his camp. It was all filled with sexual exploitation and forced marriages and sex, money, and power. I guess that's the same thing that doomsday cults do anyway. Whistleblowers came forward. They've been raided. What do you make of it? This was gaining popularity by the moment in England and across Egypt, Malaysia, the United States.
Really, it's just it looks like some kind of an offshoot from mainstream Islam. They seem to have a lot of the same ideas anyway. Um, I think this is the ones that had this kind of what looked like a kind of military camp
Yeah, they
affair
dress
in
like
Crewe
yeah,
in Cheshire.
yeah,
And I saw some reports of neighbours observing them doing what I don't know what they were, combat exercises or something. It all looks a bit
yeah,
weird. Um, but I love the way they call it the Ahmadi religion of peace and light. Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's quite hysterical, really, because they were. I mean, considering it's meant to be peace and light, there were charges of sexual slavery and all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, well, but so what's the difference between that and mainstream Islam? At least I, I think it's just another, well, it's another satanic PR exercise to make Islamic kind of beliefs look acceptable. I think just another cult group, and unfortunately, it's becoming popular. But
Very
this really
popular.
kind of nails people really do need to investigate things before believing them or getting involved with them. The most dangerous thing that people came across in the 70s when I was growing up was that the Moonies or the JWs, they all seem very harmless now compared to what we see today. They didn't have the same radical violence and yeah, I mean this looks. They look like paramilitaries, some of them. When you
yeah.
see
They
some of them
dress
have
they
uniform
dress like that.
and you know, I think people should take a hint from the way they're dressing and the kind of language that they use, that where they're heading.
You
I
know
mean,
what's interesting, Elon, about it? It's this man, of course, his name is Abdullah. Abdullah Hashem claims to be the Pope, claims to be the Mahdi, claims to be Jesus, claims to be, all these things. But one of the things that they says is Islam has now been replaced by new
ah,
Islam, which is more esoteric, more focused on miracles because Islam has vacated their place because they killed Muhammad and his family. And he's got this apocalyptic kind of doomsday cult, which basically he is the Mahdi. He's going to take over the world soon, and he's become very popular about that. But you see these doomsday cult pop up every now and then. Are we going to see more of these as we get closer to that to the end of the age?
yes, I would say so explicitly, because you have what Jesus says in Matthew 24, that false Christs and false prophets will arise and deceive many. And he specifically says, this is in, of course, the context of the 70th week, but I mean, I think it has application outside that as well. When people say to you, "Look, here is the Messiah," or "Here he is," or "That do not believe them, don't go out after them," because the coming of the Son of Man, the parousia of the Son of Man, will be as the lightning flashes from the east to the west. It won't be some little piffling little nonsense
Yeah.
like these guys. It will be there'll be no mistaking when Yeshua returns.
Amen.
Um,
You know
and
what's interesting is that they had for being a Muslim sect, like a Shiite sect, that's what the closest thing they can kind of see it as mainstream Islam is a Shiite sect, but they had tolerance for LGBTQ plus and tolerate. They promoted, I guess, child marriages. That wouldn't be anything different. But the interesting thing is that they were swapping wives and they were also forcing like marriages with children and giving away their wives. It just so much reminded me of David Koresh here in the United States,
yeah,
except the Muslim version of it. And I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. It wasn't funny, but it was just the same kind of things. You see the same kind of pattern.
but
The
in,
cult.
in in Islam, women are treated as commodities anyway. You don't have to look what goes on in Afghanistan and Iran and places like that, where women are so horribly abused, and they're just treated like chattels. They're not. They're not treated like people at all. So I don't think they're doing anything new in regard to women there, in this new cult, because child marriages and selling of children for sex slaves and child marriage is endemic in Pakistan, and what's it? Oh, forgot Afghanistan and places
Afghanistan.
like that. Anyway, so
Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised though if at some point, you find the mainstream Muslim community start attacking these people,
Hmm.
and that you get Islamic infighting, because they're very good at doing that. Killing each other as well. When they're not killing the infidel, they kill each other,
Yeah.
don't they? I mean, it's just the
Yeah.
way it is.
Right.
It's a violent, extremist, demonic religion, and
Yes.
Yeah,
in
so
every way.
just to summarize, he claimed to be a divine savior. He had large followers worldwide, claimed miracles, had prophecies, apocalyptic, hidden knowledge about, by the way, aliens. Interesting. Illuminati, conspiracies, and a sort of a new version of the Quran that was more LGBT friendly. So rewriting of, I guess, those scriptures. So,
If
whew,
if this was a Christian, supposedly, he'd be on Sid Roth straight away. He really would. I mean, Sid Roth would have him on there in a blink of an eye, because he's saying all the kind of things
all the right
that Sid
things.
Roth
Yes.
loves. Fake miracles, amended scriptures, with secret books of the Bible in heaven, all kinds of nonsense like this. You know,
Oh my
he's a
goodness.
perfect
He
candidate.
clicks all the boxes. You see,
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was going to
he
say.
clicked. He's using probably search optimization algorithms. Okay, so I
yeah,
need to be on this side of
yes,
this issue,
yeah.
this side of this issue. Um, generally speaking, historically speaking, if you have to say your peace and light, you're probably not very peaceful and you probably don't represent the light, the
Yeah.
real light.
Yeah.
Yeah. And amazing to your point, Jay, you were telling us earlier, how popular is this man with the youth?
I mean, I had never, I mean, we have talked about him, but I actually ran into one of their followers promoting his stuff, and he sends me every time this guy goes live,
Oh,
he's sending me the link for YouTube. And I've given him scripture after scripture because he's trying to teach me about Jesus. He's
oh,
like trying to teach me, and I'm like, okay, but this is what Jesus said. This is what you're telling me. And I'm serious, Marco. Unfortunately, it was like speaking to a wall. It's like
really?
anything I said, he would just move on to the next point, obviously in his whatever prepared document he has,
Illusion,
and he
yeah.
would never address any of my points. So I
Yeah.
got to the point where I was just like, here's a scripture, deal with the
Yeah.
scripture.
That's right. Amen. It's really hard to deal with somebody in a cult like that.
Yes.
There's a brainwashing aspect of it. I know Jacob's talked about it in a lot of his teachings about, addressing people in cults and Jehovah's Witness and other cults. I know he's talked about the David Koresh in the Branch Davidian, and that was pretty good. So it reminded me a lot of that, and I'm sure a lot of things are going to come out that will be similar because they carry the same kind of pattern in terms of a cult-like behavior. But here's just this false religion, false mighty, but many antichrists will come. That's what Jesus said. And will deceive many, and in the church too, and in the church as well. So, well, let's go to backstage. We got questions. Jacob has answers, and we have
Yes.
a
Hot
giveaway.
take.
Well, it's time for the Gingo to Bingo giveaway. Again, we're going to ask a question. The first one in the comments to get the right answer in on both YouTube and on Rumble will receive their choice of either my two albums, one of them, or Christoph's new album. So the question this week: how does Jacob classify his view of the rapture? We are looking for that answer, and first one to answer gets the prize, gets to have some music to listen to for free. You'll have to email me if you win at jameskitazaki@yahoo.com and tell me which album you'd like. Anyway, back to you, Marco. I believe it's question and answer time.
Very nice. Yes, we have questions. Jacob Prash has answers. At least we hope. Jacob, are you ready?
We're ready.
Jacob Prash is the one being sent against the nations in Zechariah 2:8. Is it Jesus? Is it the prophet Zechariah? Or is it the angel of the Lord? I'll read the verse here. For thus says the Lord, after glory, he has sent me against the nations which plunder you. For he who touches you touches the apple of his eye.
Because it speaks of the Lord in the third person, it is not likely the Lord himself. What it does bear a resemblance to, however, is Revelation chapter 11. Notice in Revelation 11, you have the same thing. You have an angelic being sent to measure Jerusalem and the Temple Mount, measure the temple of God and the altar and those who worship at it. This very much resembles what you see in Zechariah chapter 2. So Zechariah chapter 2 is a direct reference passage to the book of Revelation chapter 11. And it would appear that it is an angelic being carrying out that function. Also, because it says of the Lord touching the apple of his eye, that would indicate that it is not the Lord, because it's talking about the Lord. For thus says the Lord of hosts, after glory, he sent me. So God has sent him. He's one who was sent. Now, in certain contexts, that could be the Messiah. It would allude to Jesus in the sense that he's going to come back later in that book and vindicate Jerusalem. So there seems to be a double meaning in it. The first meaning is the angelic being who's doing the measuring. However, when we read it in the overall context of the book, the burden of the Lord concerning Jerusalem, when Jesus comes back and makes war against the enemies of Jerusalem, ultimately it becomes the Messiah. Ultimately, it comes the Messiah. Ho Zion, escape you are living in the daughter of Babylon. That is again two meanings, one for Babylon the Great and one for the time of Zechariah. For thus says the Lord of hosts, after glory he has sent me against the nations which plunder you, for he who touches you touches the apple of my eye. I will wave my hand over them, so they'll be plundered for their slaves. Then you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me. That has the idea. At that point, the Jews will know that Jesus is the one who was sent, that he is the Messiah. So it is a very, very nebulous passage.
Very nice. Very nice. So there you have it. Revelation 11. Make sure you read that one as well. Jacob Prash, question about Isaiah 7:16. Who are the two kings mentioned here? I'll read the passage. For before the boy will know enough to refuse evil and choose good, the land whose two kings you dread will be forsaken.
This has to be understood in light of what immediately precedes it, the promise of the Messiah. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, and she will call his name Emmanuel. That's a prophecy of the Messiah. He who eats curds and honey at that time, he knows enough to refuse and evil and choose good. For before the boy will know enough to refuse evil and choose good, the lands whose two kings you dread will be forsaken. We have a teaching, a memorial teaching, called the four sons of Isaiah. The four sons of Isaiah. Now, this relates to the entire prophecy of chapter 7. A remnant shall return. She'ir Yashuv, a remnant shall return. That's speaking of the Babylonian captivity. So in its historical context, it is talking about the double-barrel captivity, one of which was the king of Babylon, okay? One of which was the king of Babylon, and the other king had been the king of Persia, the king of Persia. But the king of Persia had been somewhat benevolent. Another aspect of looking at this is to go to the beginning of the chapter, that Rezin, the king of Aram, and Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up to Jerusalem, okay? And the Arameans have camped. So one could be the king of the Arameans. Now, again, it's speaking of two time frames. It's prophesying of the future, of the birth of Jesus, But in its immediate historical setting, it is talking about the circumstances that the Jews would be facing. At that time, there was the problem with the Assyrians and the Babylonians. Those were the two kings that were the most feared at that particular time of when Isaiah was writing in his own time. But again, he's looking forward to a forthcoming time, In the forthcoming time, there were another fear. The reason the Romans had gotten control of Israel with the general Pompey was there was a fear among the Jews of the Persians, at that time known as the Phrygians on one hand, and the Romans on the other. They were stuck between two kings, both of which they feared. But the Messiah would come into that midst. So it has a double meaning. It has a meaning for Isaiah's own time, when there was the king of Assyria, king of Babylon, but it looks forward to the second fulfillment of the time of Jesus. That's the best of my understanding at present.
Sounds good. All right. Jacob Prash, with St. George's Day just passed in the UK. Do you believe St. George was a genuine Christian believer?
It's difficult to say if St. George was an embellishment of a historical figure or not. He's generally pictured as slaying a dragon. Now, dinosaurs were not 68 million years ago. Every country from Mexico to China has dragons. There were dragons. Marco Polo wrote that there were still dragons alive in China. There are Komodo dragons in Indonesia that still exist to this day. Okay? There are Komodo dragons in Indonesia that still exist to this day. However, the dragon was a metaphor for Satan in Scripture. The dragon and serpent are cast down to you. So this guy, who was probably an Arab, George, if he existed, was a picture of the defeat of Satan. That's how they pictured him. It came from the myth of the Crusades at the time of Richard the Lionhearted, when the Crusades came to the Middle East and brought this mythology back with them to England. That is where it came from. Whether there was actually such a historical figure and he was an embellishment of somebody or a mythologization of somebody who actually existed, or if it was something that was purely mythical that was adopted, it's very difficult to say. We cannot be sure.
Very nice. Jacob, what is the significance of the triumphal arch proposed by Donald Trump? What does it symbolize, and why is it tied to a faith-based diplomacy and Israel?
I'm very troubled about things like this because it would be a monument to the Abrahamic Accords, obviously pointing to some kind of unification of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, the three monotheistic faiths. However, it would be apostate Christianity, it would be obviously Talmudic Judaism, and it would be Islam, which is a false religion. It is very, very troubling. He may want to build a monument to it. He may have good intention. However, he is definitely deluded. The whole Abraham Accord should send warning signals to all Christians. Too many Christians are prepared to rubber stamp anything Donald Trump says or does. I pray for him. I'd rather have him than Harris. I realize God is using him in many respects. I realize he blesses Israel. I realize he is benevolent towards the persecuted Christians. I realize he has a pro-life position. I realize that God has protected him from assassination multiple times. I recognize all of those things. But he is not, however, a believer. He is not well advised by Christians. He's got Paula White, who's absolute nut job, a false prophet and an immoral woman. And he, on top of not being a believer, not being well advised, he obviously has his own perspective of things that is not biblically governed. And there are a number of things that trouble me about him, one of which is Mr. Witkoff and also his son-in-law. This bothers me. The other thing that bothers me is the Abraham Accords. And this monument would be a monument to that. I do not think it's good.
All right. Thank you, Jacob. Jacob, if a woman sees the pastor of the church and that she attends and has engaged in serious doctrinal error and she has no male covering, how is she to approach the situation, please?
Okay, she does not have a Christian husband or Christian father, and she sees it. Okay?
Yep.
She should seek counsel, first of all, from a pastor or some kind of male authority in another congregation, in another church. She should go and get the counsel of another male, first of all. Go find the male covering. She needs to find the male covering. By virtue of the fact that that pastor is in error, he cannot be her male covering. Therefore, she needs to ask the question also, should I be in another church where there is a male covering, since she cannot look to that pastor? Prayerfully and with the advice, the wise counsel, she can approach the pastor under those circumstances. But I appreciate the fact that she is not going without her head covered just arbitrarily. I respect and appreciate her caution, and she's quite correct in doing that. She needs to get wise counsel outside the church, and she may need to seek the Lord about another church, since that pastor, one, is in error, and two, because he's in error, cannot be her covering. If
Very
he is
good.
indeed.
Got it. Understood. Thank you, Jacob. Jacob, as we are grafted in, do scriptures promise life, like in Jeremiah 29:11, applicable to Christian? I understand some promises are just for the Jews. Thank you.
You mentioned the questioner mentions Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. Let's read that first of all. Okay. The national promises of Israel. Okay. This is speaking of the Babylonian captivity and what follows it. The national territorial promises to Israel are for Israel and the Jews. It is the promise of salvation that is for those who are also grafted in. In the millennial reign of Christ, we see the Jews will have their land. The Gentile nations will have their nations, although all of them will worship in Jerusalem at the Feast of Tabernacles. We must draw a distinction between the national promises to Israel, and this is a national promise. Verse 10, 11 cannot be separated from verse 10. However, the broad principle, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not calamity, and to give you a future and a hope, that is indeed for all believers, but it is not the specific promise in this passage, which has to do with the restoration of the Jews from Babylon. So as a broad principle, you can say yes, but as a specific application, you'd have to say no. It's only for Israel.
Very good. Thank you, Jacob. I know that's a very popular verse, and certainly, I agree. Principles, yes. Specifics, Israel. In Revelation 14:17-20, Jacob, what do the grapes and the winepress symbolize?
Okay, this is the grapes of wrath. Notice in this chapter there are two harvests. There are two harvests, okay? One harvest is for the believers. One harvest is a good harvest. The second harvest is not. Let's read this. I looked and behold from verse 14, a white cloud, and he was sitting on the cloud like a son of man, that's Jesus, having a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice, he who sat on the cloud, put in your sickle and reap, because the hour has come because the harvest of the earth is ripe. He who sat on the cloud swung the sickle in the earth, and the earth was reaped. Now that particular harvesting is what we read in Matthew 24 in the Olivet Discourse. Look very briefly to Matthew chapter 24, what Jesus says. Verse 29, after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from the sky, powers of the earth will be shaken. And then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in verse 36. Okay? The tribes of the earth will mourn, etc., etc. And he will send forth his angels with a great trumpet. They will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other. That is what you read in Revelation chapter 14, verses 14 through 16. Okay? The one on the white cloud, the Son of Man, there he is, as Jesus said in Matthew 24. They see the Son of Man coming. That is the harvest of the believers. In verse 17, verse 17, it switches. And another angel came, different angel, out of the temple which is in heaven. He also had a sharp sickle. And another angel, the one who has power over fire, came out from the altar. And he called with a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, put in the sharp sickle and gather the clusters from the vine of the earth, because her grapes are ripe. And the angel swung his sickle to the earth and gathered the clusters from the vines of the earth and threw them into the great winepress of the wrath of God. This is known as the grapes of wrath, just like in the hymn, the battle hymn of the Republic. Glory, hallelujah. My eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord, where the grapes of wrath are stored. Okay. And the winepress was trodden outside the city, and blood came out from the winepress up to the horse's bridle for a distance of 200 miles. The first harvest has to do with the rapture and resurrection. The second harvest is the grapes of wrath of God's judgment.
So the grapes symbolize judgment.
Yeah, this is dealt with in the book Harpazo, available from Moriel.
Very nice. Jacob Prash, will the third temple be destroyed and another temple be built for the millennium?
The tribulational temple will be defiled. It is likely that it will be like with the Maccabees. It will be rededicated. It'll be rededicated, defiled by the Antichrist, who was prefigured by Antiochus, and then rededicated by the Maccabees. So when Christ comes, the temple, the tribulational temple that was defiled by the Antichrist, will likely see the same kind of rededication in the character of the Maccabees. It'll have to be completely rededicated. That is the best of my understanding.
Very nice. Yeah, that's very good. Jacob, how would you interact with the person who declares to be an atheist?
On the basis of scientific logic, cause and effect. Look at the probability theorems. Look at human vision. The idea that that could evolve without an intelligent design, it is absurd. The mathematical probabilities make it absurd. Remember, the fool says in his heart there is no God. Somebody cannot understand who or what God is. They can be agnostic about his identity and his nature, but they cannot reasonably be unsure there is one. People who are unsure, who deny there is actually a supreme being, Bible says they're fools. If they believe that in their heart, they're fools. Now, cast not your pearls before swine. If such a person begins mocking you, all you can do is pray for them. You can't witness to them. Do not cast your pearls before a swine. If a person comes to you honestly, or seems to be, I would argue with them on the basis of logic and probability. It's too complicated. Going right down to the level of the atomic level, then to amino acids, then to the level of enzymes, proteins, peptides. It is just too complicated to make one organism that can interact in a biosphere with other organisms. It's too complicated to have happened by chance. It's just not logical. That is the approach I take with such people.
Jacob, I think you addressed some of them, not all of them, but some of the questions on thou shalt not ask. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to get a little bit more information based on what you're...
Thou shalt not ask.
Thou shalt not
and
ask.
we deal
Very
with
good.
Darwinism and others.
Yeah, very good. That's good. Jacob, I believe this Iranian war through Trump and Israel will restore peace in the Middle East, and which will usher the building of the third temple. Your view?
There will not be a lasting peace in the Middle East until Christ makes it. The Antichrist will bring a false peace to the Middle East that will not last. The Antichrist will usher in a false peace, but it will not last. I do believe that the present events transpiring are part of that process. I believe Antichrist is coming. I believe there will be a false peace. I'm very suspicious of things like the Abraham Accords, obviously. I do believe that, but I would not say that this is going to bring in a peace and make I could not, that is too speculative, too speculative. The main thing to remember is ultimate peace will only come with the return of Jesus, but there will be a false peace orchestrated by the Antichrist.
Nice. Jacob, one more question. This will be the
Oh,
last
by
one for
the way,
tonight.
the Antichrist will be instrumental in the rebuilding of the temple.
Yes, correct. Jacob, can I ask, what are the dangers of oneness theology? Thank you. I would imagine that this is oneness Pentecostalism, but I'm going to assume that. But oneness
Yeah, this
theology.
is the heresy of Sabellianism that denies the triunity of the Godhead. First of all, it denies the three persons of the Trinity, so it denies the nature of the Almighty, the eternal nature of the Almighty. But it also ends or results because we're made in His image and likeness as Imago Dei beings, they misconstrue the nature of themselves. Every one of us is three in one. We have a body, we have a soul, that is a mind, and we have a spirit. Because God has a spirit, we have a spirit. Because God has a mind, who has known the mind of the Father, we have a mind. Because God has a body, the Son, we have a body. There's three of us, but there's one of us. You could want to do something. You could be reading a book or a passage in the Bible and you want to read it. But if you're like me, you read yourself to sleep and you begin dozing off and you try to keep awake to keep reading. Well, your body has one will, your mind has another will, and your spirit has another will. Now, in the Godhead, these three are in perfect harmony. In the Godhead, these three are in perfect harmony. Is there one of you or is there three of you? Well, there's three of you, but there's one of you. There's only one of you, but there's three of you. They have separate wills, separate identities. There are people who are not physically attractive, but have a beautiful spirit. There are people who are physically attractive, but they have an ugly heart. You know what I'm saying? There's one of us, yet there's three of us. There's three of you, but there's one of you. The reason that is true is because we're made in His image and likeness. There is one of Him, but there's three of Him. There are three of Him, but there's only one of Him. Ahad, a plural union, a plural oneness. This is the nature of the Godhead. If we deny the Trinity, not only do we, or the triunity of the Godhead, we deny His eternal nature, but we also deny our own nature. We don't understand what we are. Additionally, you have tremendous problems navigating and negotiating John's Gospel, chapters 14 through 17, where the three distinct persons of the Godhead interoperate and cooperate interactively. If you throw the triunity of the Godhead out the window, there is no way you can make rational sense or theological sense of John chapters 14 through 17.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Jacob. That's it for tonight. Thank you so much for sending the questions. Jacob, thank you so much for your answers. And everybody else, thank you so much for being here with us, catching up with Jacob, question and answer. Good stuff. We'll see you guys next week. Actually, Elon, why don't you close us out and give us some words of encouragement and something to pray for this weekend?
You know what always I know I always come back to this. What really gives me encouragement and hope it is looking outside of our our current historical framework. Because everything around us seems to be getting darker. And everyone's saying, "Oh, it's not like it was even 2 decades ago." Things seem to be accelerating as well. The Islamization of Europe, the increasing lawlessness, godlessness, hatred of Jews, hatred of Christians. On the one hand, these can be very depressing, and especially when you see the horrible things that are happening, for instance, in Nigeria and the Sudan, believers being massacred. But Jesus did say that these kind of things, as we get towards the 70th week of Daniel, these things are the beginning of birth pains, and it does mean in the end that the baby, a baby is on the way. And what we see today happening around us, we can, as we've spoken on the Israel report sometimes, the way that settlement in Judea and Samaria, the increasing control now that Israel is beginning to take over the Temple Mount. All of these are symptoms of the nearness of the Lord's return. I'm not saying like J.D. Farag, he's going to turn up on Monday or something like that. I don't believe in, that Jesus can just return. His return is imminent, that in the sense that it could happen at any moment at all. But we are seeing signs that we are approaching that time. And Jesus said, if in the middle of that time, when it comes upon us, the tribulation, look, when you see these things begin to occur, lift up your heads because your redemption is drawing near. And, the Lord is going to fix this messed up world and deal with all these demonic powers that drive all of this evil. And that gives me hope, really, that, this is not the situation it's going to be forever, the way these things are. The Lord has promised that he will restore this planet and clean it up and boot Satan into the abyss, along with all his demons. So, that's very encouraging, that this world is not going to continue the way it is at the moment. There will be a reckoning for the wicked and all this evil that we see. And so that's what I would, we can really pray towards that end, of course. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. We want the Lord's kingdom to come in the end. Maranatha, is that not right? So maybe we could. That's what we could pray on as we close, I think. So
Very nice. Thank you, Elon. God bless you, brother. Thank you so much for being with us. Jacob, Jay, Davey, thank you so much. God bless you guys. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys next week by the Lord's grace.